Chapter 1. How this guide will help you increase engagement and effectiveness. Everyone knows boring and unproductive meetings are the worst. Yet I'm willing to bet that if you look at your calendar, you will see a week full of mind-numbing meetings. Worse, you're probably leading some of those meetings. The unfortunate truth is the majority of your career as a professional will be spent in mundane and ineffective meetings, many an utter waste of time and resources. Because we know we're sentenced to a life of meaningless meetings, we tend to accept it. We develop little strategies to cope with boredom. We look at our phone below the table's edge, hoping no one will notice our distracted gaze. We bring our laptop and bang out emails while the attention is focused on another poor soul. In virtual meetings, we use one monitor for work while pretending to listen on the other one. We will find ways to pass the time and hope to have something to show for our investment. Meetings don't have to be boring and ineffective. A better and more productive way to make meetings more engaging exists. With the right strategy, the meetings, workshops, trainings, and retreats you lead can be something people look forward to instead of something they dread. Your meeting can become a space to explore options, create innovative solutions, and make decisions. When done correctly, meetings are a safe place to get more ideas and voices heard. Engaging meetings can be wholly satisfying and energizing rather than a drain of everyone's energy. Someone should put an end to boring meetings. That person is you. With the right frameworks, methods, and tools, you can change the output and experience of the meetings you lead. If you are willing to throw out the standard playbook and put in a little extra effort, you can lead meetings that get results, elevate your team, and maximize everyone's return on investment. You will increase the effectiveness of your organization or your client's organization and differentiate yourself as a leader. You will gain a reputation as the talent development professional, facilitator, or trainer with a track record of results. This guide proposes a different approach. This guide gives you practical strategies to make your meetings more engaging and productive. If you followed the advice in this book, you will get more participation and contribution in the meetings, workshops, trainings, and retreats you lead. Simply put, this approach will make your meetings more productive. What I won't do is provide you with advice on trust falls or silly improv games to make your meetings more fun. Don't get me wrong, I like fun, but we want to lead engaging meetings because they are more effective and get results. This guide is about driving higher engagement and thus greater results from the meetings you lead. It's not about making you more likable or entertaining. It's not about you at all. The advice in this book is about the participants in your meetings and how to get more engagement from them to brainstorm innovative ideas, make key decisions, or move projects forward. A fair warning: the strategies and tasks that make a meeting more engaging mostly happen before the meeting. Leading an engaging meeting requires more work up front. If you want to show up and throw up, as we say in the business, this book is not for you. The big idea of this book is that you must engage people if you want engagement. It's the simple law of reciprocity. If you make a concerted effort on your meeting participants' behalf, they will respond in kind. Follow the advice in this book, and your room of quiet people will be so active you will need strategies to get them to stop talking so you can end the meeting on time. What's in each chapter? I recommend you read this book from start to finish because it's organized for someone preparing to lead an engaging meeting. It's intentionally brief and to the point so you can immediately put the ideas to work. I've designed this book to be a quick reference guide, so if you prefer to skip around and use it like a field guide, here's what's covered in each chapter. Chapter 2. How certain attitudes and behaviors undermine engagement. Chapter 3. How to clearly define a meeting's main purpose and desired outcome. Chapter 4. How to plan for an engaging and effective meeting. Chapter 5. How to increase anticipation for your meeting. Chapter 6. How to get off to a fast start when the meeting begins. Chapter 7. How to run the meeting to increase participation and effectiveness. Chapter 8. How to identify, recover, and overcome the common challenges when a meeting goes into the ditch. Chapter 9. How to overcome the specific challenges of leading virtual and hybrid meetings. Chapter 10. How to properly end the meeting so participants walk away with a great experience. Conclusion. One final noteworthy piece of advice that can change everything about how you lead meetings. Why take my advice? I have been a full-time professional facilitator designing and leading 60 to 70 workshops and strategic retreats a year for the past 7 years. I took my first GE workout course before I heard of facilitation over 20 years ago. I have been working on the craft ever since. I have spent over 10,000 hours thinking about and experimenting with strategies to better engage business leaders in all types of meetings, including 2-hour brainstorming sessions, half-day workshops, full-day workshops, and off-site retreats. Being a professional meeting leader barely sounds like a job to many people. I chuckle when I ever tell people what I do for a living. But as you know, many leadership teams, departments, and companies need an experienced, trustworthy guide for their most important meetings. These aren't your run-of-the-mill status meetings. The folks who hire me pay big bucks for my services, so the stakes and expectations are always high for an engaging and productive experience. And before you ask, yes, my Myers-Briggs assessment says I'm an extrovert. Does it give me some advantage? I can't say for certain. What I can say is I still get nervous before every workshop. My palms sweat, my throat becomes scratchy, and my heart pounds when I open my mouth. Why am I telling you this? The methods in this book are style and personality agnostic. In other words, don't try to be me. The world needs you to be your best you. You may not be a full-time professional facilitator, but you can still gain a lot by sharpening your skills and making the meetings you lead more engaging. The rewards of leading an engaging meeting. People notice when you host engaging and productive meetings. Instead of sitting like bumps on a log, complaining or not showing up, they will tell you things like, "Wow, the time flew by today. We got a lot more done than I expected. I feel clear, connected, and aligned with my team." Please think about those lines again. How often do you hear those words or say them yourself about the meetings you attend? If you're like most people, it's rare. Rare experiences are considered unique, remarkable, and noteworthy. The trainer or facilitator who leads engaging meetings consistently stands out and is perceived as rarer and more competent than the crowd. Leading engaging and productive meetings leads to making better decisions as a group, which leads to better team or company performance, which leads to achieving more goals, which becomes a differentiator in your career. Demonstrating your competence in leading effective meetings shows senior leaders you're capable of greater responsibility. Do it well, and leaders will trust you to do it again and again. Who this guide will not help. Becoming a talent development professional, facilitator, or trainer with a reputation for leading engaging meetings requires adjusting how you interact with the world. Depending on their beliefs and motivations, some people may be unable to make the adjustment. In that case, this guide will not help the following types of people. Those who are cynical and uncaring. For these people, no strategies, skills, or techniques will make their meetings more engaging. For meeting participants to engage, they must feel safe to speak up, sharing ideas, and taking risks. If the leader is cynical about people's value or capabilities, it will come through in how they lead the meeting. The participants will disengage if the leader doesn't care about their feelings, desires, and needs. Those who need to be right. Participants need to know their ideas matter to feel comfortable engaging in the meeting. The meeting leader needs to make participants feel seen and heard. Engaging meetings are about finding the best ideas and making the best decisions as a group. If you lead with a predetermined answer or destination, this is hard to do. Getting others to engage will be challenging for people who need to be right. Those who are unwilling to let go of control. A close cousin to needing to be right is a need to control the outcome of the meeting. Think of leading a meeting as an agreement between the leader and those who will be led. To achieve and preserve the agreement, you must give the participants more control of the flow and the outcome. This doesn't mean allowing the meeting to become an unproductive free-for-all, but allowing participants to make choices and drive results. Those who believe how we do it is the only way. If you're reading this book, you're unsatisfied with how we do things today. You might feel like leading meetings that get people to engage is like a root canal, or you aspire to go from good to great. Either way, you sense that your meetings could be more engaging and productive. Meeting leaders unwilling to do things differently than they are customarily done are on their way to keeping things the same, dull and unproductive. You will have to do things differently to lead engaging and productive meetings. Transforming boring and ineffective meetings into engaging meetings is only possible if you are willing to change how you show up and engage the people in the room. As for the strategies, skills, and tactics, this book will help. Start before you're ready. You don't need to finish this book to begin putting my advice into practice. Even small changes can significantly impact engagement in the meetings you lead, so you should start today. Follow the advice in this guide and you will transform boring, ineffective meetings into engaging, productive meetings that enhance participation, generate better ideas, and drive results. Before we begin, I want to thank you for coming this far and turning to the next page. Only a fraction of the people who want to make a change are willing to pick up a book to help themselves, and only a fraction of those people ever get past the introduction. I'm committed to helping you differentiate yourself at work, so if anywhere along the way you want to connect, shoot me an email at jeff@leadingengagingmeetings.com. The next chapter concerns the behaviors and attitudes preventing people from engaging in meetings. Even if you only read this next chapter, I am confident your meetings will become more engaging. Let's begin. Chapter 2. What undermines engagement in meetings? Have you been to the dentist and had a cavity filled? If you answered yes, could you do the same procedure on someone else as skillfully as the dentist? No, of course not. Dentistry is a learned skill taking years to master. This same logic doesn't apply to running a meeting for most people. Most of us believe that because we've attended a meeting, we know how to run a meeting. This sort of thinking couldn't be further from the truth. Leading a meeting well requires a philosophy and multiple practices grounded in getting results. Unfortunately, many people have only ever experienced bad meetings and rely on this for their standards when tasked with leading a meeting. The result is a meeting with low expectations and lower results. You will learn a proven philosophy and practices to lead engaging, productive meetings that get results. Before addressing strategies and tactics, let's discuss a few issues almost guaranteed to diminish meeting engagement. If you avoid these engagement killers, you are already ahead of everyone else in the meeting game. Many meetings fail to be engaging experiences because they lack something more than fun for participants. What undermines engagement? The fundamental problem is usually based on one of these 5 reasons. 1. Meetings lacking purpose. 2. Meetings lacking clarity. 3. Meetings lacking discipline. 4. Meetings with nothing at stake. 5. Meetings where everyone comes in hot. Often the most unengaging and unproductive meetings are burdened with all 5 qualities. The following paragraphs address these 5 issues in detail. Meetings lacking purpose. The bane of most people's working life is the standard status meeting. This includes the weekly staff meeting and monthly report meeting. I'm betting you've sat through your share of these one-on-one meetings disguised as team meetings. You know you're in one when you stop paying attention because it's not your turn to speak. Typically, everyone in attendance takes turns providing the team leader with a status update or challenges they may be experiencing. The questions tend to be lame, and most of what comes out of people's mouths is made up on the spot or is positioning by the speaker to appear busy. The rationale for holding the standing meeting is to stay connected. Staying connected isn't a good reason to hold a meeting. This rationale holds up when everyone is getting paid to be there anyway, but it rarely holds up if you must pay for the meeting. You might think differently if you had to pay the bill at the end of the meeting for the salaries, benefits, room rental, and AV cost. Add the opportunity cost of not doing something productive, and this staying connected meeting gets pretty expensive. What makes this type of meeting a waste of time? Lack of purpose. It's a standing meeting, which means it's routine and not special. People attend these meetings because they are expected to, not because the meeting has a meaningful purpose. Fuzziness on the purpose of the meeting leads directly to fuzziness in the participants' minds regarding the problems we're trying to solve as a group. Without an apparent problem to solve, it's challenging to collaborate on a meaningful solution. This approach to meetings leaves a productive outcome to chance. Meetings need a purpose to make them more engaging. The ones lacking purpose are destined to be a bad experience from the start. People need to be able to answer the question, why are we meeting today? If the answer is, I don't know, then you are better off letting people work. In Chapter 3, I will help you better define your meeting's purpose and significantly improve the focus and engagement of everyone involved. Meetings lacking clarity. If I ask you to rate the meetings you lead, how might you rate the degree of clarity related to the choices, decisions, or agreements? When I ask people this question, they tend to give themselves high marks. maybe 8 or 9 on a 10 scale. When I follow up with, show me the document where you captured all the decisions made in the meeting, the self-scoring tanks to a 2 or 3, because everything is kept in their heads where it gets jumbled up with their impressions and feelings. People tend to assume that because we all attended the same meeting, everyone walked away with the same experience. This assumption extends to the specific problem the group tried to solve and the decision the group tried to make. Even what was agreed to is often questionable after most meetings. If you have 10 people in a meeting, you should assume 10 meetings are taking place simultaneously. Each person brings their unique point of view, personal agenda, and desired outcome. Due to their unique vantage points, the attendees experience the meeting differently, and these differences lead to a lack of clarity about why we are here, what we are doing, and how we will do it. Being clear on the purpose, procedures, and choices you need your participants to make in the meeting is crucial. Your participants need to know how they will make choices, the role you want them to play, how this meeting and its choices and decisions fits into the larger context of the company goals, and even when they'll take a break. Without this information, participants won't have enough certainty to engage meaningfully. Meetings lacking discipline. Another engagement-destroying assumption is the lack of discipline regarding how everyone will work together in the meeting. Meeting leaders tend to make the mistake of believing adults know how to behave and how to stay on track for an hour-long meeting or full-day training. We know where that assumption leads us, don't we? This flawed thinking makes meetings too loose for most participants to engage productively. Some will use the looseness as a reason not to engage, and others will try to capitalize on it to push their personal agendas. Either way, the meeting spirals out of control and participants check out, because it didn't feel like it was going anywhere worthwhile. Meetings lacking discipline often start late, have no clear purpose or procedure, go down rabbit holes, and tend to end only because time ran out. The lack of discipline spreads like a virus to the next meeting until the end of the day. We wake up and do it all over again the next day. Even professional adults need to know the boundaries, expectations on how to behave, and structures to help them stay on course. Simultaneously, they need an environment that provides a high sense of autonomy and self-direction. It can be tricky to achieve both structure and autonomy. Too much structure and the group will rebel. Too much latitude gives a forceful voice or first speaker the power to take control of the meeting and serve their agenda instead of the group's purpose for gathering. A client and friend sums up the perfect balance of structure and autonomy with the term freedom within a framework. Engaging meetings are engaging because the leader provides enough structure and discipline for participants to be productive and enough freedom to be creative. It's a balancing act, and it doesn't happen without leadership. In Chapter 6, I'll share strategies to start the meeting and establish discipline from the get-go. Meetings with nothing at stake. The all-too-common informational meeting falls into the nothing at stake category. You know this meeting. It's when someone bores you to death by reading 90 PowerPoint slides in an hour and then asks if you have any questions. There's nothing at stake because you, as a participant, don't need to do anything but sit there and endure it. Nothing at stake meetings invite people to disengage because the meeting leader fails to engage the participants. The questions in a nothing at stake meeting are, when will it be over and how can I make an excuse to leave early? Far too many meetings fall into this category. The simplest solution is not to hold these meetings in the first place. Most meetings can be replaced with an email, or at the very least, they can be short and to the point. Raising the bar on what deserves a meeting does two things. One, it means you and everyone else will attend fewer meetings. Two, it makes the meetings you do hold more meaningful experiences. If you're going to have a meeting of bright minds, make sure it's of consequence and raise the stakes. Put those bright minds to work. Participants can sit back and judge rather than be part of the solution if you don't. Give them a reason to have some skin in the game and their engagement and productivity will rise. I share strategies to raise the stakes for your participants in Chapter 5, where you will learn how to prepare for the meeting. Meetings where everyone comes in hot. The most frequent impediment to engagement is what I call coming in hot. The meeting starts with everyone involved, including the leader, sprinting from the last meeting that ran 5 minutes late into this meeting. No one knows the purpose of this meeting, even the leader, and no one has prepared for a productive meeting. Spending the first 5 minutes of a meeting trying to figure out why everyone is present and what they are meant to do is a guaranteed path to weak engagement and poor results. Meeting participants are like movie audiences. They like to know what they are getting into and how to prepare for the show. The movie industry shows you so much in the trailer so that you will know exactly what you're getting. Why do you think they do this? It's because people like certainty and familiarity. We want to know what will happen in a movie because it makes us feel intelligent and prepared. Nothing is worse than thinking you bought a ticket for a comedy and finding out it's a horror film. The same principle applies to a meeting. If you want people to engage, then they need to know what they will be expected to do before you ask them to do it in the meeting. If people understand the purpose of the meeting and you tell them how to prepare for it, they will arrive ready to work. Telling people what to expect and how to prepare for a meeting is helpful for the participants. Plus, it communicates that your meeting will be different from the rest. It tells participants to take your meeting more seriously. I'll share strategies to do this well in Chapter 5. Address the 5 qualities to transform boring, unproductive meetings. If you are in a rut with a pattern of leading too many meetings where the purpose isn't clear, then people won't trust you as the leader of their meeting. When they lose trust, they will stop engaging and start looking at their phones and laptops. You can change this by clarifying why we are here, how we will work, and what the outcome will be for the meeting. Do this repeatedly, and engagement tends to happen all by itself. The good news, you can easily address each engagement-eroding quality with a few basic moves, which you can master to increase your odds of leading engaging and productive meetings. Engaging meetings don't happen by accident. Most of what makes a successful meeting happens before the meeting begins. It starts with designing an engaging meeting, which we will turn to in the next chapter. Chapter 3. Build the meeting brief. Most meetings aren't engaging because they have been left to chance. Every meeting needs to be designed, whether it's a 2-hour brainstorming session or a 2-day retreat. It starts by clarifying the problem you're trying to solve and what you want to get out of the meeting. This way, everyone knows why they're there and what they're working toward. From this starting point, it's as simple as providing some background, knowing what type of meeting you are leading, and paying attention to who needs to attend and what roles they play. It all starts with investing 15 minutes in building a meeting brief. Why build a meeting brief? Sending a meeting invitation to prospective attendees may seem like the first step in planning a meeting, but before you set things in motion, you want to build a meeting brief. The purpose of the meeting brief is similar to using a compass. If you were out in the woods, you would use the compass to maintain the desired bearing relative to magnetic north. With this simple tool, you would avoid going in circles. Designing a meeting brief is easy to do and all too often skipped by trainers and facilitators. The elements of a meeting brief include the meeting context, problem statement, meeting type, desired outcome, agenda, required participants, and roles. This may seem like a lot of information, but it's critical information that will unlock engagement and effectiveness. To avoid overthinking your meeting brief, set a time limit of 15 minutes to address all the elements mentioned above with a done's better than perfect mindset. That is, aim for a barely good enough first draft. Sleep on your first draft and revisit it the next day with any key players to refine it. The following paragraphs detail each element so you can design an effective meeting brief. Provide context. The context for the meeting matters. The most valuable meetings solve a specific problem with creativity and decisiveness. Articulating the situation surrounding the meeting is vital to design and plan an engaging meeting. Attendees can participate more fully when they understand the situation, challenges, and context of why the meeting is on their calendars. This doesn't mean spending the first 30 minutes of your meeting explaining context or methodology. Instead, you articulate the context with bullet points in your meeting brief and then include this text in the meeting invitation. There is no science for the right amount of context, but you can usually summarize it in 3 to 5 bulleted statements. You want the attendees to think, okay, I got it. Don't expect a big reaction. If you've done this well, most meeting attendees will shrug off the context as something they already understand, yet it will set the stage for a more engaging and meaningful experience. The aim is to have everyone start from the same general place of understanding regarding why we're here and where we're trying to go. Define the purpose or problem to solve. Why hold this meeting? What is the purpose? You can sum up the purpose of every meeting with a problem statement. This may be challenging to describe at first, but it's vital for you as the meeting leader to articulate the specific problem you and the group are trying to solve. Defining a problem statement is essential for two reasons. It forces you to tighten up the definition of the meeting's main purpose so you can validate it with others. 2, when you are clear on the problem to solve, it's much easier to scope the meeting accordingly, including the agenda and required participants. If you have a big problem to address, you may need to hold a longer meeting or multiple sessions to solve the problem completely. If the problem turns out to be minor, ask yourself whether the issue is meaningful enough to require a meeting. Remember, you want to set a high bar for bringing people together. My guiding principle for planning a meeting is do only what we can do together. Avoid scheduling a meeting if a single individual can solve the problem alone or if the issue can be resolved with a brief, informal discussion. Defining the exact problem to solve and the meeting's main purpose allows you to break the meeting into segments so you can work your way toward solving the problem step by step. Select the appropriate meeting type. An endless number of topics can be addressed in a meeting. Many fit into one of 4 meeting types. Understanding the meeting types will go a long ways towards helping you focus your energy on the meetings you lead. Meetings longer than a half day can include time blocks with different types of meetings. Each of the 4 meeting types requires a corresponding style of leadership. In addition, each type of meeting has its corresponding objective. The following is a review of the meeting types and how to decide which one best suits your meeting. Information status sharing meetings. This type of meeting includes weekly or monthly team check-ins, dashboards, and project updates. It's a team meeting, but most of the time attendees provide an update in a one-to-many format. These meetings generally feature someone reading PowerPoint slides to an audience with Q&A session at the end. The level of engagement is low because when someone is in the hot seat, everyone else is only half engaged. Typically, the information shared is valuable, but the approach isn't ideal. If your team members need status meetings to operate at their highest level, keep the status meeting as a status meeting. Don't let it become a problem-solving or decision-making meeting with a few people participating while everyone else disengages. Clarity and efficiency are the goal for an effective information status-sharing meeting. Improve your information status-sharing meetings by emphasizing the need for participants to read the pre-reads and by focusing most of the discussion on projects or financials that have fallen behind or are off track. Keep a list of topics that need greater discussion and avoid trying to solve problems in real time with everyone in the room. Schedule a follow-up meeting with only the key decision makers and contributors to solve your identified problem. Creation or problem-solving meetings. The group explores, ideates, or creates solutions to a problem in this type of meeting. This looks like a workshop or brainstorming session. The participants understand their role is to actively conjure up and share their thoughts and ideas to solve a problem or challenge. The level of engagement is higher in this type of meeting because it offers more opportunity for interaction and participation than in an information status sharing meeting. The approach to leading a great problem-solving meeting is to first define the specific problem the group needs to solve and the goal. Too often, teams dive in without clearly articulating what they hope to achieve. As the meeting leader, you can easily do this with a problem statement or questions. If you ask the meeting participants to write down the problem they think they are here to solve, you will get many different answers with various scopes. Some will be at the principal level, the relationship level, the financial level, or the tactical level. To be more effective, the meeting leader needs to calibrate the group to a singular problem to solve. The only way to do this is to draft a problem statement beforehand and ask for help editing it for clarity before you call the meeting. Decision-making meetings. This type of meeting can be confused with creation meetings because the group comes up with ideas and then picks the one they like the best. For a meeting to be a decision-making meeting, it needs significant structure and clarity of the options with documentation of the choices the group makes. The engagement level in a decision meeting tends to be higher than other types of meeting because, if done correctly, the right people are in the room and the stakes are higher for everyone involved. Teaching, training meetings. This is another form of the one-to-many meeting where the going-in assumption is that the group will learn something new and valuable. The bar for teaching training meetings should be that whatever is taught is immediately practical and beneficial to the participants. It can't be information that's just nice to know. It must help them do their jobs better. The best teaching training meetings include instruction, discussion, activities, and practice. Many digital tools make it easier to hold this type of meeting online and at the participants' pace. Be sure to ask yourself if you should present your teaching training meeting as a recorded online training instead of a live in-person session. The answer is often yes, especially considering budget, worker productivity, and potential facility costs. All the rest. What about one-on-one meetings to discuss personnel issues, team building events, and off-site retreats? You can break these meetings and their segments into the 4 meeting types we discussed. Sometimes you may be informing, creating, deciding, or teaching in those meetings. You want to be clear about your objective and how you lead the meeting and segments to match the objectives. Declare the desired outcome. It's easy to confuse the meeting's purpose with the desired outcome. Remember, when you clarify the problem statement, you also identified the meeting's purpose, the reason or why the group is getting together. The desired outcome is the resulting work product of the meeting. Here are 3 example meeting purposes. You schedule a day-long workshop to develop a new go-to-market strategy for your startup company. You gather a cross-functional team for a couple of hours to brainstorm a solution to a technical problem. You sit down with employees to hear a project status update and remove any roadblocks to streamline the project. The desired outcome is more tangible. It's something you produce during the meeting. Knowing why you're meeting your purpose is essential, but it is not enough if you don't declare the desired outcome, the resulting work product. You want to be able to communicate both to your meeting participants. Desired outcomes might include go-to-market strategy document, fast, affordable solution to a technical problem, streamlined project plan, business plan, marketing brief, new volume forecast, set of operating norms, decision or choice in writing, project timeline, individual development plan, to-do list, customer proposal. The rule is to create tangible evidence that the meeting occurred and produced the desired result. You should identify the desired outcome in advance whenever you plan to lead a creation or problem-solving meeting, decision-making meeting, or teaching and training meeting. The standard information status sharing meeting typically falls short of meeting worthiness, and you should consider using a different format or medium rather than holding a group meeting. This type of meeting rarely produces anything tangible. Create an agenda with questions instead of topics. When crafting an agenda, break it into time blocks. For each time block, define the meeting type, the objective, and the desired outcome for that segment of your meeting. Instead of putting the topic in each segment of the agenda, design a question the group can answer together. A topic tells the participants something will be discussed and leaves too much space to sit around the table quietly. When you present a question to answer, it immediately creates curiosity and interest. For example, a question in the agenda, such as, how might we redesign our incoming sales lead process, communicates that you are looking for ideas more than discuss sales leads. The question scopes the problem to solve and signals that you expect the group to help you answer the question. This tiny change can dramatically influence how people show up during your meeting. Build the agenda so you are working downhill. If you estimate a topic might take 45 minutes to address, give yourself 60 minutes in the agenda. Doing so builds slack within the agenda so participants can feel like they are ahead of schedule when it took only 45 minutes to answer the question. It's not about how long a topic takes to address, but how long the participants expected it to take. Completing each task more quickly than planned gives you and the participants a sense of positive and productive momentum. I call this working downhill, and it's a simple agenda trick to give you and the participants confidence. Alternatively, picture the impact of giving a question 45 minutes in the agenda and taking 60 minutes to answer the question. In this scenario, the group feels the step took longer than it should have, and people begin to feel frustrated. In reality, it has nothing to do with the time it takes to answer the question or arrive at a decision, but with how you build the agenda. Build it so you and the participants feel you're winning throughout the day. Save time at the end to discuss next steps. Almost all meeting agendas end with a next step conversation. I will typically allow 45 to 60 minutes for this discussion. After thousands of meetings, it has never taken more than 30 minutes. I always design the meeting to allow flexibility and a buffer at the end of the day in case a topic took longer to discuss or we got into the ditch. You'll learn how to get out of the notorious ditch in Chapter 8. Knowing I have 45 to 60 minutes at the end of the day for an activity that rarely takes 30 minutes gives me confidence that we can end early or at the very worst, on time. In other words, run downhill instead of uphill. Avoid putting brief topics at the end of an agenda. My final advice to manage the clock is to never put a 30-minute topic right before lunch or at the end of the day. These topics never take 30 minutes, and most people disengage. What seems small always turns into something long and drawn out, messing up the entire agenda. I like to place these topics either outside the meeting or in a spot in the agenda that allows more flexibility to make adjustments, perhaps first thing in the day or right after lunch in an all-day meeting. Determine the appropriate participants. Engagement and productivity plummet when you have too many passengers in a meeting. Passengers are people who attend the meeting but don't contribute in a meaningful way. Amazon instituted its 2-pizza rule to combat having too many passengers in a meeting. The rule states that if you can't feed everyone in the room with only 2 pizzas, you have too many people in the meeting. A simple way to improve engagement is to invite only those who can contribute to solving the problem you identified in your meeting brief. This is not to say that only subject matter experts can attend the meeting. Adjust your mindset on who to invite based on the type of meeting you're leading. Use a tight filter if it's a decision-making meeting and a looser filter if it's a creation or problem-solving meeting. Choose attendees for your meeting with the same care as you would for a dinner party. Consider the diversity of thought, energy, experience, and the productive friction resulting from participants who bring diverse expertise or points of view. By saving the decision of whom to invite to the meeting after you've addressed all the other elements in your meeting brief, you should have a better handle on whom to invite for the highest level of engagement and best results. Clarify people's roles. Most teams hire a facilitator or ask the in-house talent development professional to lead an important meeting because it's challenging for the team supervisor or project manager to simultaneously wear the facilitator hat and be a participant. The reason for this is role confusion. It's challenging for the group you're trying to lead to tell when someone switches from host, participant, and facilitator. Understanding all the roles that need to be played during every meeting will make your job as leader much easier. Host role. This person owns the decision on the meeting's main purpose and the desired outcome from the meeting. Sometimes, this is the highest ranking person in the room, like a CEO or department head. Other times, it's a project owner who needs support from the group, which might include senior leaders. This role is essential because the host calls the meeting and owns what comes out of it. The host clarifies the purpose or problem statement, sets the meeting type and objective, and chooses the participants. The host welcomes participants to the meeting and tells them why they were chosen and how the work they will do connects to the bigger picture. During the meeting, the host will play the participant role. However, before they do, they need to visibly turn over the meeting to the person playing the facilitator role. This prevents folks from looking to the host to share their opinion so they can align themselves accordingly. In addition, the host should prepare to be the last person to speak in the meeting. They need to reinforce why the work matters and thank everyone in the room for their time and effort. Facilitator role. This person guides the group and leads the participants through the process and activities during the meeting. Anyone can play the facilitator role, but this person's role in the meeting needs to be clear to the group. Whoever plays this role during the meeting owns the meeting once the host passes them the baton. It means the host, who is now a participant, will follow the instruction and request of the facilitator. In an ideal setting, the facilitator sticks to leading the meeting process and avoids developing solutions. However, many teams don't have the resources to have one person only play the facilitator role, or perhaps the team asks the facilitator to share their expertise on a topic. The way to get around this is for the facilitator to state to the group when they are wearing the facilitator hat and when they are wearing the participant hat. It sounds silly, but I will make the two-handed removing and putting on the hat gesture to make it clear to the group that I'm momentarily switching roles. The key point to remember as a facilitator is that designing a meeting that delivers on the host's stated purpose, produces a desired outcome, and allows others to do their best work is a significant contribution. Don't underestimate the impact you can have by framing the right problem to solve and creating the agenda to solve it. Participants. This includes everyone besides the facilitator in the meeting after the opening remarks by the host. The role is best played by following instructions, challenging for clarity, and trying to deliver the desired outcome. Participants make the meeting work. The people selected for the meetings should bring diverse experiences and viewpoints and be engaged in delivering the desired outcome. It is unacceptable for participants to bring their laptops and work on something else while half listening. With a completed meeting brief, you have the fundamental ingredients to lead an engaging and productive meeting. Investing a small amount of time in your brief lets you know why you are meeting, who should attend, and what you will produce. This information will guide how you plan and prepare for the meeting so it delivers results. That's where we go next. Chapter 4. Plan for an engaging meeting. The meeting brief is like the blueprint, and when you're done with the blueprint, it's time to start planning and preparing for the meeting. This chapter covers important considerations like time of day, meeting flow, how to arrange the room, and using various helpful tools to run your meeting. While personalities are different, human behaviors are often predictable, and this chapter will help you put those tendencies in your favor as you plan an engaging meeting. Start by deciding the best time of day to achieve your meeting's purpose. Choose meeting times wisely. The science is clear. Some people are morning people and others are night people. This means people feel more energetic or productive at different times of the day. Experience has taught me mornings are better than afternoons when planning engaging meetings. Here's how to use the time of day to your advantage when planning an engaging and productive meeting. When to start the meeting. Different companies have different cultures when it comes to starting the day. Some are old school and begin before sunrise. Others are more relaxed, allowing employees to take kids to school. Plus, it's common for teams to be distributed across multiple time zones. Regardless of culture or time zone challenges, my preferred time to start a half-day meeting or full-day workshop is 9 a.m. This gives the pre-dawn folks enough time to address emails and complete a few tasks to feel productive. And it gives the people with morning family obligations enough space to avoid feeling rushed. This start time also works well for organizations with hybrid and flexible work arrangements. What to expect after lunch. Count on an energy lull after lunch. Everyone knows this and expects it to happen, making it a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some meeting leaders will make the mistake and want participants to work through lunch or cut the lunch break to a half an hour. For a full-day workshop, I prefer allotting an hour for lunch because it generally gives folks 30 minutes to eat with time to check their email, take a walk, and regroup for a productive afternoon. I've found that it's more effective to put creative activities in the morning and save the organizing, sorting, and deciding activities for the afternoon. Most people can muster their executive thinking after lunch better than their creativity. When to end a meeting. Regardless of the start time or meeting duration, I try to adjourn by 4 p.m. The rationale for ending at 4 p.m. is the same as for a 9 a.m. starting time. It allows workshop participants to check their email, complete a couple of tasks before they go home, or get home to begin their evening activities. The law of diminishing returns is evident later in the day. The return on investment for another 15 minutes of meeting goes down precipitously and off a cliff after 4 p.m. The trick to leading an engaging meeting, start to finish, is anticipating common human behaviors and building your agenda accordingly. A professional trick is to tell the participants the meeting adjourns at noon for a half-day meeting or 4 p.m. for a full-day workshop, and then end 10 minutes early. Build your private meeting agenda to end at 11:50 a.m. or 3:50 p.m. respectively. It feels like a massive gift to the participants, but didn't cost you any productivity because you planned to finish early. No one is disappointed if the meeting ends 10 minutes early, but they will scorn you if you end even 1 minute late. Plan accordingly and never risk ruining a wonderful workshop experience by ending badly. Structure the meeting to be engaging. Personally, I believe time is more valuable than money. Spending too much time in a disorganized meeting hurts more than a punch in the arm by your middle school bully. How you structure a meeting sets up your meeting for engagement and productivity. Before structuring your meeting, you must know a few things about people. First, people have short attention spans. They lose interest quickly if you don't change the flow or topic. Think of it like going to a party that only plays slow songs. The perfect slow song at the ideal time at a party is a crowd pleaser. An entire night of slow songs will put everyone to sleep. The second thing you need to know about people is they will check out if they sit too long or if you don't ask them to do something. They politely pretend to listen, but you and I know it isn't happening. People need to know or anticipate that they will be required to do something every 30 minutes. The third thing to remember is the rule of 90 minutes. I don't know the source of this rule, but my experience has shown it to be true. Every 90 minutes, you need to give your participants a break. It's great if you can land the break between the conclusion of one topic and the beginning of the next, but it's perfectly fine to break at any time. Go longer than 90 minutes and you risk losing them. When you send people to break, tell them when they need to be back and ready to go. I often choose odd times like 2:33 p.m. to get their attention. With those assumptions in mind, you can begin structuring your meeting. You need to break the meeting into time blocks. Think in 15-minute increments. Anything less and you'll drive yourself nuts. Anything more and you're liable to waste valuable time. How much can you expect to accomplish in a meeting? Generally, facilitators tend to take two approaches to planning a meeting. The wing it approach, which you now know you shouldn't do, and the plan too much approach. In this case, well-meaning facilitators build their meeting agendas on the assumption people operate at peak efficiency continuously throughout the day, and their agendas include more topics than attendees. If you fall into the plan too much camp, it's time to get realistic about what you can achieve in a meeting. It's less than you think. If you design the meeting following my guiding principle, do only what we can do together, you've narrowed it to be informative, creative, decision work, or training. For these meetings to be engaging and productive, you must allow room for participants to explore and consider options. It makes their experience more engaging, and the exploration will lead to better thinking and choices. The concept behind this approach is also applied to the visual arts. It's called negative space. In art, negative space is the space around and between image's subject. Negative space helps to focus the eye on what matters. Similarly, an ideal meeting gives each topic enough space to fully explore so when a decision is made, it's final. The alternative is to rush through topics and return to them repeatedly because people are unclear or not aligned with the decision or the execution. Full-day workshop. Most people overestimate what a group can accomplish in a 7 to 8 hour workshop. Many are surprised to learn we only have about 6 hours of work time in an 8-hour day. This is because the welcome, warm-up, and agenda discussion takes about 30 minutes. Next, the group needs a break every 90 minutes. The break should be 15 minutes long, and lunch should be at least 45 minutes long. Finally, you should plan on at least another 30 minutes for closing remarks and confirming the next steps and drivers. My guidance for a full-day workshop is to address 4 topics, max. Any more, and you are switching so fast the group cannot get into any depth with the options, choices, and decision-making. You need enough negative space for each topic to naturally have its introduction, messy middle, and close. Half-day workshop. A half-day workshop can cover 2 meaningful topics. You will need less time for an open and close to the workshop, but you still need to allow plenty of negative space in the agenda for creativity and discourse. Cut it short, and your participants will walk away feeling like the discussion was incomplete, and they will lack finality on any decisions made. Shorter than a half-day workshop. 1 hour and 2 hour meetings can give you enough time to discuss a single, meaningful topic. If you are leading a 1 hour meeting, you don't need to schedule a break. If you are leading a 2 hour meeting, it's helpful to schedule a short break, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Alarm bells should be ringing when you find yourself scheduling half-hour meetings. Is this topic worth scheduling a meeting, or can you address it in an email or video message? It's challenging for a group of people to be creative, explore options, and make choices in a 30-minute meeting. Match the room arrangement to the meeting types and objective. An often overlooked ingredient to high engagement is the arrangement of the tables and chairs in a room. Specific room arrangements are more conducive to different meeting types with their corresponding objectives. Surprisingly, the room arrangement can enhance or hamper your ability to achieve the meeting's main purpose or deliver the desired outcome. The following paragraphs provide insight and advice, while figure 4b offers a quick reference. Boardroom table. Boardrooms are designed for power and to focus the attention on a single decision maker. Many companies have spent significant money on their boardroom tables to impress or intimidate. Boardrooms are my second most despised room to work in because this room arrangement gives me, the facilitator, nowhere to stand if someone's sitting at the head of the table or the ability to put the participants into smaller teams. A boardroom table can work for decision-making meetings and suffice for a creative or problem-solving meeting if there are no other options. U-shape arrangement. Some folks will request this room arrangement by default for their off-site meetings. The U-shaped table arrangement, my least favorite, is designed for someone to stand at the front of the room and present slides to the group, which we can all agree is not engaging. Avoid this room arrangement if you want people to participate in creative meetings. It will suffice for a decision-making meeting. Classroom style. The classroom is conducive for teaching training meetings. It's not my preferred room arrangement because it sets people up to learn well individually rather than in small groups. I wouldn't use this seating arrangement for anything but a large group of individuals you are trying to teach as efficiently as possible. Rounds or small group arrangements. This room arrangement is best for creative or problem-solving meetings because it allows you to move people around, ask them to sit at different tables, and work in small teams of various sizes. This is my preferred meeting room arrangement due to its freedom and flexibility. The downside is that it's difficult to prevent people from having private conversation, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. How to create a facilitator guide. Let's discuss two extremely helpful documents when planning an engaging meeting. The first is the meeting agenda, which you share with the participants. The second is a facilitator guide with the agenda, detailed information, and planning reminders to help you lead the meeting. If you've ever seen a run of show for an event, you understand the value. The facilitator guide is your script for questions, activities, stories, and handoffs to other speakers. It's your written visualization of how the meeting will flow in 15-minute increments. If the agenda is a music playlist, the facilitator guide includes the scales and notes. Here's how to build a facilitator guide to lead an engaging and productive meeting. See Figure 4C for a sample facilitator guide. The time block column. The facilitator guide is a table with time blocks in the far left column. The blocks include the start time, finish time, and total allotted time for each block. For instance, your first block of a full-day workshop might be 30 minutes for the host welcome, agenda, and warm-up. This block represents all the time invested in these activities. The next block might be your first topic of the day where you will invest 60 minutes in ideas and solutions to an operations problem. The next block might be a 15-minute break, followed by a 30-minute block to decide and assign owners. The facilitator column. The facilitator column identifies the person leading the meeting during each block of the meeting. This person is responsible for engaging the participants with questions and activities. If you are the only facilitator, then include your initials in every block. If you are splitting responsibilities with the host, speaker, or co-facilitator, then assign the block to the person responsible for that segment. Including this information in the facilitator guide removes the awkward, "I thought you were leading this part of the meeting" moment. The agenda topic column. The agenda topic column should match the agenda you shared with the participants before the meeting. It's a quick reference to remember where you are in the agenda. In the planning phase, the column helps you think about the 4 different types of meetings and their corresponding objectives: creating, deciding, informing, and teaching. Assigning each block one of the types helps scope the work you will do to engage the participants. Avoid having too many information segments or investing too much time into those segments. Use breaks and activities to increase the level of engagement. The details column. The gold is found in the details you list in the details column of the facilitator guide. Here you include your notes, instructions, and stories you plan to use to engage participants and solve problems in each block. These notes should be as robust as you need to lead. You will reference them throughout the meeting, so be concise and clear with your plans. The materials column. This final column in the facilitator guide references any handout materials, tools, and templates or slides you need to support each agenda block. It's a list for easy reference when you're in the heat of the moment. Use templates for small group activities. One of the most underrated tools in the meeting game is templates. In its simplest form, a template is a series of predetermined questions and blank boxes needed to be filled in with answers by meeting participants. Dr. Alex Osterwalder, an entrepreneur, speaker, and business theorist, took templates to the next level with the Business Model Canvas. It was a revolutionary approach to thinking about business with nothing more than a giant sheet of paper with 9 boxes on it. The power of this template in a group of professionals is that it breaks bigger questions into smaller questions that are more easily answered in an orderly fashion. Making templates before a meeting allows the template to do some of the work. It keeps the participants' questions and problems to be solved front and center, improving focus. The template also increases the diversity of thought because you can use it with small groups who will approach the questions uniquely. It allows you to multi-track a problem and keep everyone on task because they are focused on completing a template. This results in a better and deeper discussion than what's possible in the typical open discussion around a boardroom table. The internet is flooded with canvases designed by bright people. My personal collection includes templates for team building, business planning, strategic planning, and dozens more. Templates are easy to build and are a perfect partner for sticky note activities when you print the template on a 36 by 24-inch scale. See Figure 4D for a template canvas for a team assessment activity. Try it once and see an entire room full of small teams working diligently to complete their template in the allotted time, and you will enjoy a whole new level of meeting engagement. Now that you have created a solid plan for your meeting, you might think you're more prepared than ever, but you need to take one more step before you can lead an engaging meeting. Everything up to this point is theoretical. Sure, you have taken a big step and put your thoughts on paper, but like a medical student who has only studied textbooks, you haven't done the physical work to become a competent surgeon. The next chapter will explain how to prepare for the meeting to ensure it's engaging and productive. Follow the advice and you will grow your confidence to take on any meeting, no matter the stakes. Chapter 5. Prepare to lead an engaging meeting. Actors, athletes, and astronauts all practice their moves to perform at their best when it matters most. On the other hand, knowledge workers generally believe they are too busy to prepare and rely on the hope that everything will go right on the first attempt. Survey 100 people and 99 of them will tell you that they wish they had more time to prepare to lead a meeting. But time is rarely the problem. Not knowing what to do and how much to prepare properly is what prevents us from performing at our best. How much time should you invest in preparing for the meeting? The answer is dictated by what's at stake for you, the team, and the company. For example, if the participants need to make a critical decision with millions of dollars in people's livelihood at stake, you should overinvest in preparing for the meeting. It seems self-evident that the more critical the meeting, the more you should invest in it, but most people want a guide for the ideal amount of time for all the non-game-changing meetings. A good starting point is to spend half the time of the meeting preparing for the meeting. If the meeting is 2 hours long, you should invest an hour preparing for the meeting. If it's a 2-day workshop, you must spend at least 1 day preparing for it. You may read my recommendation and think, I don't have time to rehearse or plan for a meeting. These recommendations are what it takes to achieve excellence. Remember, the person atop the mountain didn't get there by accident. If you've been doing zero prep for your meetings, then even some prep for your next meeting is better than nothing. Increase your confidence to lead. One of the toughest challenges when leading a meeting is getting the train to leave the station. Most meetings and workshops are slow to start and have few opportunities for the participants to engage because the facilitators are winging it. They aren't guiding the participants so much as they are just wandering around with them in the dark. You can dial up your confidence with a few changes to your process, which will, in turn, dial up the level of engagement and effectiveness. Rehearse the meeting. The run-through should consist of mental or physical visualization of the agenda, thinking about what you will say, the materials you will need, the slides you will use, and the activities you will ask the group to participate in for each time block in the agenda. If you have partners or co-leaders of the meeting, practice who owns what and how you will transition the leadership baton to avoid awkward moments in front of the group. The goal for your rehearsal is to make the event feel like the second time you've led the meeting, making you more confident. Script what you want to say. Usually a script isn't necessary, but bulleted talking points can be helpful to keep you organized and on time. See my sample facilitator guide in the previous chapter. The exception to the general rule is that if you were telling a story. In this case, the details and timing make the story, so write a script and rehearse it. Don't leave it to chance. Plan to avoid the ditch. Meetings rarely go perfectly as planned, and at some time or another end up in the ditch. The ditch is when the group loses momentum or reaches an impasse because they misunderstood the instructions or hit a wall. If you prepare adequately, it's pretty easy to predict when the moment will occur. During the visual walkthrough of the agenda, place a bet on when the ditch moment might happen and develop a contingency plan to overcome it. For additional tips on troubleshooting a meeting and getting out of the ditch, see Chapter 8. Anticipating the ditch is usually the best way to escape it quickly. Don't let them see you setting up. Lock the door. That's right. Don't let people in the room until you are ready for them to arrive at your meeting, workshop, or retreat. Don't let Eugene play the game of showing up 30 minutes early to the meeting to say he was the first person there. Nope. Keep everyone out of the room until you have it just how you like it. This includes arranging the tables, turning on music to set the mood for an upbeat workshop, training, or retreat, and putting out the sticky notes and markers. You've done a lot of work to help people prepare and engage in your meeting. Everyone involved is confident that this will be an effective use of their time. Don't let all that confidence fall apart because you let folks in the room too early and now they see you trying to get the projector cords out of the way, fumbling with the batteries in the slide clicker, and trying to get the speakers to play sound for that inspiring video you want to show in the warm-up segment. Control what you can control and never let them see you set up. Give the participants a head start. Many trainers and facilitators make the mistake of believing the meeting starts at the beginning of the meeting. This misconception leads to valuable meeting time invested in introductions, housekeeping, presentations, and explanations when it could have been used to engage the participants. You can differentiate yourself and the experience before the meeting begins by engaging participants with a better invitation. The calendar invitation. Send the invitation from your calendar like you usually do. If available, include pertinent details that a person can easily reference on the move. It should include helpful information such as the meeting's location's address, parking, dress if it matters, if live attendance is expected or if virtual attendance is an option. If additional details are unavailable and you are asking them to hold the date, then communicate this to the invitees. Update the calendar invite as soon as you have more information. Think of the calendar invite as the quick reference people need to attend your meeting and be prepared. Follow the calendar invite with a meeting invitation. The meeting invitation. The meeting invite is not the same thing as the calendar invite. Many folks confuse this and miss an opportunity. The ideal approach is to first send a calendar invitation and then immediately send a meeting invitation via email, which includes the purpose of the meeting, the reason the person is needed for the meeting, what you will ask the person to do, the agenda, and all the other details you include in the calendar invite mentioned above. When you provide all this information, you allow the invitee to understand better what they are getting into. They can make a more informed decision on whether to accept the invitation. The side benefit is that the person feels more respected and appreciated, since most people send the calendar invite without much context other than the subject line. The meeting preview email with brief video. One unique action that has driven the most interest and engagement before the meetings I lead is sending a meeting preview email with a brief video. Sending a meeting preview a week before the meeting, workshop, or training is an extra step with a big impact. The goal of the meeting preview is to help your meeting participants know what to expect and how to prepare for the meeting. It's precisely what I write in the email. This email will tell you what to expect and how to prepare for the meeting. I then include 2 sections in the body of my email with those headers: what to expect and how to prepare. See Figure 5A for an example of a real meeting preview. 1. What to expect. In this section of the meeting preview email, I include the date, time, address, room, dress, dial information, and other logistical details such as dinner or breakfast details. Include anything the participant needs to know to arrive on time and understand what and how things will be done. All details must be clear, concise, in a bulleted list so it's easy to reference. The aim here is no surprises for the participant. 2. How to prepare. One hindrance to engagement is feeling unprepared or looking stupid in front of our peers. The How to Prepare section of the meeting preview email helps alleviate concerns and gives participants greater confidence. I generally provide 3 bullet points to help the participants prepare for the meeting, including anything I expect them to read, watch, or listen before the meeting, with a warning that the meeting will start with the assumption that they have done the work in advance. To increase the likelihood that they will complete the work, include the time investment to complete each activity. You may also use this section to ask participants to complete a survey or a task. The aim is for every participant to be invested in the meeting's purpose before arriving and be prepared to deliver the desired outcome. Number 3, personal message video. As an external professional facilitator, I generally walk into a room full of people I don't know. I need to quickly build rapport with the group, so they will permit me to be their guide. I do this with a brief, custom video embedded in the meeting preview email, letting them know who I am, what to expect, and how to prepare for the meeting. I simply read the meeting preview email to the camera. This isn't fancy. I do it in one take from my desktop camera and microphone. Professional producers classify video content quality as A, B, and C. What you see on the nightly news is A quality video. The aim here is C quality video from a non-professional. Participants always appreciate a sincere message from someone who seems highly approachable, and they never complain about my C quality video. Would you like to see an example? Visit www.leadengagingmeetings.com/preview to see a personal video message for readers of this book. The personal video approach isn't only for external facilitators. It has worked for almost everyone I know who has tried it. The return on investment of a 2-minute first take video is worth all the awkward feelings you might experience recording it. The vast majority of folks watch the video. I even had one long-term client tell me they prefer watching the video over reading the email. The video message helps people prepare for the meeting, understand my role as their guide, and know precisely what we will do in the meeting, so you don't need to review this information at the meeting start. The side bonus is that when I introduce myself, they always say, "Yeah, we know. You're the guy in the video." This little activity has accelerated my rapport building with strangers faster than anything else I've tried. Most of your peers just send a meeting invite, and you should consider yourself lucky if you receive any context for the meeting. Many people incorrectly assume the subject line of the meeting request alone is enough to tell attendees how to prepare for the meeting. People want to be engaged and contribute, allowing them to feel successful. This begins with a calendar invitation, a well-thought-out meeting invitation, and a meeting preview email containing your personal message video. Complete these 3 steps and witness how the momentum feels stronger at the start of your meeting. Call participants to act before arriving at the meeting. The call to action is one of the essential ingredients in marketing. Without it, an advertisement is just entertainment or information that rarely sells. The call to action is often the last thing you read, see, or hear in an advertisement. When it comes to an engaging meeting, a call to action should be one of the first things you develop. Engagement is about action, and why wait until the meeting begins to ask participants to engage? If you plan as described in Chapter 3, you have a good sense of the elements required for the meeting to achieve its main purpose and deliver the desired outcome. This is an excellent opportunity to get your participants thinking about the meeting by taking action to prepare for it. It primes the participants with how to think. An article, video, or survey can go a long way toward helping your meeting participants get into the ideal state of mind before arriving. The right story or data set can prepare participants to share ideas and recommendations earlier in the meeting. An additional benefit is that the folks who want more time to think deeply about a problem have a head start. The alternative is to do what everyone else does, which is not to send a pre-read or ask anything of the participants, resulting in everyone starting from scratch 10 minutes after the meeting begins. If you send a pre-read document, keep it brief and include specific questions from your agenda that you want participants to contemplate before joining the meeting. These extra steps help readers think proactively about the work they will do in the meeting or workshop. It reduces the busy work needed while everyone is in the room. Nothing is more wasteful than intelligent and motivated people watching one person type notes into a spreadsheet or document projected onto a screen. It's the worst experience, but it happens all the time. Essentially, meeting leaders are communicating, "We didn't plan, so we'll all watch Jerry figure out how to use a spreadsheet while we coach him." What a waste of time. Whatever you can do before the meeting should be done before the meeting. Better to draft a recommendation, share it with the group, and ask for feedback than to start from scratch with a room, live or virtual, full of people. It builds momentum before the meeting begins. Engagement is similar to a locomotive with a long tail of rail cars. It takes significant time to get it moving if it's at a dead stop. You don't have much time in a meeting before you lose people's attention. You want to start the meeting by acknowledging how much progress folks made preparing for the meeting. How to decide if you should use presentation slides. When people see slides projected onto a screen, they tend to believe they can sit back and relax because nothing will be asked of them. In other words, slides tend to encourage disengagement. The reality is that sometimes you need slides to communicate helpful information. If using slides, remember that you and the participants are the stars and the slides are the backup singers. The slides need to support whatever you're doing live in the room. If you use them, the aim is to use as few as possible and keep the information brief and to the point. A guideline for slides is that a person should not be able to read the slides and feel like they participated in the meeting, because the slides simply reiterate a key point or provide proof with compelling data. Less is more when it comes to slides. Fewer slides, fewer words, fewer numbers, and certainly fewer decimal places. If you show numbers on a slide, please round to the millions or thousands. Nothing screams unprepared more than seeing $157,642.35 on a screen. Challenge yourself to send relevant slides to review in advance and ask the participants to read them in your What to Expect and How to Prepare meeting preview email and video. During the meeting, use a mix of handouts, cheat cards, posters, flip charts, sticky notes, and participant guides to engage the group. Not using slides is one of the easiest ways to be different and stand out from the crowd of leaders, facilitators, and trainers. Too many business people rely on slides as a crutch for not preparing in advance. And being the person who doesn't need them immediately gives you credibility with others. Not needing slides while being prepared and confident to deliver the meeting experience demonstrates your competence and expertise. Prevent distractions in advance. There will come a time when you lead a meeting with an executive sponsor or senior leader supporting the endeavor. It might be a planning workshop or a big project kickoff meeting. The instinct is to have the leader kick off the meeting with a few inspiring words and exit for the entire day. Or perhaps someone has asked to observe the meeting. Both scenarios are a bad idea. The executive pop and drop. The executive pop and drop is a mistake because it always comes off as insincere to the audience. Here's why. Leaders typically show up and say how the work to be done in this meeting is the most important work the company is doing right now. They follow this grand statement by exiting to work on something else. If this is the most critical work the company is tackling right now, then where are they going? The words don't match the actions, hurting your credibility as the meeting leader and lessening the importance of the work to be done in the meeting. If the executive wants to kick off the meeting, it's better if they stay and participate for a portion of the meeting and duck out later. Observers in the back of the room. The other scenario is when someone wants to observe from the back of the room. The rationale presented is that this person wants to sit quietly in the back, listen to the group, and see the progress of the meeting. In practice, however, this person sits at the back of the room, clacks away on their laptop, and barely listens. The presence of this person changes the behavior of the participants. In science, this is called the observer effect, where even particles at the atomic level behave differently when being watched. The simple solution is following the earlier rule. Everyone participates. This approach sets everyone on an even playing field. Executives and support folks alike can lend a hand in solving any problem, even if they aren't a subject matter expert. With the turn of the next page, you're taking a giant leap from practice to performance. You have done everything you can to design, plan, and prepare to lead a productive and engaging meeting or workshop that has a clear purpose and will deliver the desired outcome. You are ready to play the meeting guide and use activities to answer each question in the agenda. It's time to start the meeting strong with the right tone. Chapter 6. Start the meeting strong with the right tone. Facilitating a meeting is like riding an elephant. You are in charge until the elephant decides you are not. How you start the meeting is important because this is when participants decide if they are with you or against you. Start the meeting well, and they will follow your lead. Lose their confidence, and they will take you for a ride. How to start the meeting. The way you start the meeting can influence how engaged the participants will be during the meeting. A strong and thoughtful start puts the odds in your favor. Sloppy and disorganized starts communicate that this is another meeting where participants know they can check out and just watch the clock until it's finally over. Make the participants feel welcome. During the welcome, you greet the participants and make them feel appreciated for attending. I often tell participants, I'm glad you're here, even if their boss made them attend my workshop. I want them to know I appreciate them and their attendance, regardless of how or why they showed up. Don't leave this moment to chance. Have a plan for what you want to say to the group. It doesn't need to be a script, but it should be a list of bullet points setting the tone and energy for the participants. If the meeting has a host, the person paying for the offsite meeting or workshop, you, playing the facilitator role, should ask them to greet the participants and then pass the baton to you. Don't make this request 2 minutes before you need them to say something. Ask them a day or two before the meeting and set the expectation that they have 5 minutes max. Inevitably, they will ask what you want them to say. Tell them it's their job to remind the group of the bigger picture. In other words, this meeting serves a bigger purpose. Encourage them to tell a personal story if they can think of one. Finally, the host then needs to thank the participants for the valuable work they're about to do and pass the baton to you. Reiterate the purpose or the problem to solve. With the baton firmly in your hands and the host sitting down and playing the participant role for most of the day, you must remind the participants of the meeting's main purpose or the problem they are here to solve. Explain it as if they have never heard it before. By repeating it in your preview video, on the meeting invite, and at the top of the agenda, you are scoping the work to be done in the meeting. If it's helpful, list some things the group will not be doing in this meeting to clarify the scope of the meeting for the participants. Explain the process. Walk the participants through the high-level agenda. Avoid the details. Explain the process and questions you will ask the group to discuss. Inform them that they will answer the questions with activities. When you explain it at the beginning of each topic again, the group has a reference point. Visuals are helpful here. Showing the process and explaining the activities at a summary level permits the participants to relax and trust the process. Show the participants how to measure success. It's essential to describe the physical work product the group will produce at the end of the meeting, the desired outcome. Remember, this must be tangible. For example, most of my strategy building workshops conclude with a first draft strategy document. I'm intentionally saying first draft because I will produce a more refined second draft directly after the meeting and send it to the group. The words first draft permit the participants to adopt a done's better than perfect mindset. Other work products can include a timeline, presentation, decision, written down, and budget, also written down. The reasons to meet are to create a solution to a problem or decide on something. You need proof the meeting took place with the work product, the desired outcome. Sharing what this looks like at the beginning of the meeting gives participants a clear picture of what they are working toward. Remember that the meeting's tools and the first draft work product don't need to be fancy. See Figure 6A for a picture of a real workshop poster. Ask participants to take action right away. Want to know the fastest way to get a room full of adults to moan and groan? Tell them we are going to do a quick warm-up activity. Most meeting professionals feel a warm-up is a waste of time because it's not immediately productive. The goal of the warm-up activity is not forced fun. It is to get people talking and writing at the beginning of the meeting in hopes that they will continue to do so throughout the rest of the day. Like 12-year-olds at a middle school dance, getting on the dance floor usually takes more courage than staying on the dance floor once you're out there. Doing a warm-up activity when the stakes are low is an easy way to engage people immediately, making it easier for them to continue to engage when the stakes are higher. Even the most fervent haters of the warm-up still engage more often after they've completed this initial activity. The two ingredients of a good warm-up are that it must be brief and it requires everyone to participate, including the executive host. My simplest warm-up is presenting a question to the group and asking them to write their answers on sticky notes and then share them at their table. Depending on the number of people at a table, this warm-up activity can be as short as 5 minutes. It's important to reiterate that everyone must write and share one thing. The goal is to have everyone write at least one item and say one thing at the beginning of the meeting so they are more likely to do so later. The simplest warm-up is a thoughtful question. The level of cheesiness is up to you. You can play it straight and ask something as simple as, what is one thing you want to get out of this meeting today? Or, what is one concern you have about today's desired outcome? You can go the personal route and ask people to write down and share their plans for the weekend or their next vacation. The warm-up can be clever or funny, but it doesn't need to be effective. Anything that results in writing and speaking works. How to make it more fun without losing everyone. To dial it up a bit, I like to ask the warm-up question, and right before they begin to capture their answer in words on a sticky note, I add, "Oh yeah, you have to draw a picture, no words allowed." This typically gets a groan and whispers, "But I can't draw." It's not about quality. It's about getting the participants to engage, which always includes vulnerability. Help them do it and have a few laughs along the way, and you're off to a good start towards an engaging meeting. What to avoid with the warm-up activity. Asking people to introduce themselves in small groups is effective, even if everyone already knows each other. It makes it safer for new folks or in case someone has forgotten a person's name. However, please do everyone a favor and skip the request to have each person introduce themselves if the group has more than 5 people. The clock is ticking on engagement when the meeting begins, and asking 25 people to state their name, title, and years of service one by one is a surefire way to bore people to death. Search meeting warm-up activities in your internet browser for loads of ideas that are more effective than the old name, title, and years of service bit. Why warm-up activities are essential. The sooner you get participants talking, writing, and moving, the more engaged they will be throughout the meeting. Warm-up exercises are a must. As noted, activities can include simple moves such as writing a question on a flip chart and asking everyone to write their answer on a sticky note before the important work of the meeting begins. The point is to get participants to participate and collaborate immediately, which sets the expectation in their minds that there is more to come. Set agreements for how to think and behave during the meeting. Another mistake when starting a meeting is to rely on expectations rather than setting agreements for how to behave and think during the meeting. The problem with expectations is they are unspoken and live in people's heads. Expectations are also based on experience and how we've always done things, including old behaviors and mindsets that no longer serve the group or your meeting. A better approach is to set agreements with the group to highlight the behaviors needed to produce the desired outcome. Universal agreements are less helpful than specific meeting agreements. For instance, if the meeting includes significant imagination and creative work, encourage the group to agree to a done's better than perfect mindset, to avoid analysis paralysis or perfectionism. Begin the meeting with this agreement, and it's much easier to get the group members to remind each other to move quickly rather than trying to get everything perfect. What will happen if you skip setting agreements? Suppose you skip this activity due to time restrictions or the assumption that everyone already knows how to behave. In this case, you, the leader, won't have anything to refer back to during the meeting when you want to correct bad behaviors. For instance, one of my go-to agreements is no monologues. When I offer this agreement to groups, more often than not, everyone smiles and jumps on board quickly. They will even say things like, "Oh yeah, it's a good one for our group," and "Yeah, let's be concise today." This is precisely the reaction you want. The stronger the response during the setting agreements activity, the more powerful the agreement is later in the meeting. Most participants will self-correct, or at the very least, make immediate adjustments with only the slightest nudge. The agreements work for you as the meeting leader, so you don't have to deal with an awkward situation later when someone behaves badly. How to set agreements and make it engaging. Try to have fun setting the agreements and poke fun at our shared bad behaviors. Everyone in the room knows they are guilty of one or two of these unpleasant behaviors. Lead with a few recommendations and invite the group to add to the list. The aim is 3 to 5 clear agreements and confirmation from the group to self-enforce the agreements. As the facilitator, request permission to enforce the agreements if you notice bad behaviors. Strong participation during the agreement setting activity indicates strong participation during the rest of the meeting. Agreements with memorable headlines are more effective. The more repeatable and visual the agreement, the more likely participants will use the agreements during the meeting. As a backup, I leave them posted somewhere in the room. Here are a few of my favorites. Remember, there are no points for originality, so please steal with glee. See Figure 6b for a quick reference of agreement examples. Number 1. Done is better than perfect. Encourage people to turn down their self-judgment and perfectionism and trust there will be time to edit, refine, and perfect later. The priority for this part of the meeting is the number of ideas the group generates, not the quality of ideas. Number 2. Everybody writes. One unfortunate behavior from a bygone era is that men tend to expect to talk and women tend to do all the writing. The typical phrase I overhear is, "You should write because you have the best handwriting." Get around this outdated mindset by agreeing everyone writes their own sticky notes. Nobody is allowed to play the scribe. This serves double duty because when people write their own sticky notes, they are more engaged in the discussion. Number 3. Consensus is not required. Knowledge workers are generally collaborative and friendly during a meeting, with their primary goal being consensus. Good meetings include consensus, but should also have a healthy bit of disagreement, friction, and competing ideas. Remind participants to start by exploring more options rather than aiming straight at the easiest idea or solution to reach a consensus. Let the process take care of sorting ideas. Early in the process, the more diverse points of view, the better. Number 4. Lead with a recommendation. This agreement addresses the "I don't like this option or choice presented" comment we often hear in meetings. Without this agreement, just one person not liking the option or choice implies the group should start over. Not liking something is not enough when we set the bar at recommendations. Participants must present an alternative proposal than just blowing up an idea simply because they don't like it. Number 5. Everyone gets an A. This agreement comes from the book The Art of Possibility by Benjamin Zander and Rosamund Stone Zander. Most of us battle an inner voice telling us our ideas are not good enough. When you give everyone an A, including yourself, you are priming to be more compassionate to everyone in the room. Number 6. No monologues. As mentioned earlier, this agreement is apparent and shouldn't need to be said, but how much time is spent suffering through someone's monologue? Talking too long and too much, or repeating yourself or what someone else just said are all terrible behaviors. Everyone notices it coming out of someone else's mouth, but rarely their own. The no monologue agreement helps curb this behavior as soon as it begins. Number 7. Straight talk. This agreement comes from The Speed of Trust, The One Thing That Changes Everything by Stephen Covey, and reminds everyone to turn up their directness and honesty dial. Most of the time, folks don't want to hurt people's feelings, so they soften their language so much it becomes unclear where they stand. Straight talk is about stating the facts as you see them and leaving out all the fluff. The standard in my meeting is clarity. When participants are clear, they act. How to think about your role as a facilitator. If you've ever been whitewater rafting, you know what it means to be the guide. The guide has gone down this river repeatedly, and you can rarely throw anything at them they haven't overcome before. They exude confidence and engender trust. When you are the leader of the meeting, this is the role you want to play. Even if you have senior leaders in the room, if you're leading the meeting, your job is to be the guide. The guide helps people produce the desired outcome. This means you don't have to try to have all the answers or outshine the participants. Your role as the guide is to keep everyone on track to achieve the meeting's main purpose and deliver the desired outcome. Your contribution won't always come from your smarts or expertise, but from designing the agenda for engagement and guiding the group to solve a particular problem. As the guide, it's your job to ruthlessly prioritize the meeting's main purpose and desired outcome, which means repeating them often. It also means holding every conversation to this standard. Does this serve our purpose today? If not, that particular topic goes to the parking lot. Set it aside for future discussion. As the meeting leader, you must redirect the group whenever necessary. Cut off the person who is monologuing, see Chapter 8's discussion on troubleshooting, and put the tangential topic in the parking lot. Engagement in a meeting is all about safety. Participants subconsciously wonder, do I feel safe to engage in this meeting when I'm uncertain of the outcome? It is better to consider your participants by two feelings, safe and unsafe, rather than extroverted and introverted. Put a bunch of introverted people in a room, and if they feel safe to be themselves and share their ideas without being judged, they will participate. It's your role to make everyone feel safe to share half-baked ideas and suggestions without fear of retribution or embarrassment. You can do this by shrinking the group size into small working groups and having people write and then speak. More on these tactics later. Congratulations on getting the train to leave the station. It's now picking up speed and momentum is building. You've set the right tone for a productive meeting or workshop, and through your actions, you've already made it the most engaging meeting of the week. Now that the participants are moving, talking, and writing, it's time to shift your attention to running an engaging meeting start to finish. At this particular part of the journey, you extract the most value from the participants so you can deliver the desired outcome together. Chapter 7. Run an engaging meeting, start to finish. It's finally showtime. If you have followed all the steps, you should feel confident that you've given yourself and the participants the greatest chance for a participative and collaborative experience. It's time to turn your attention to clever tactics that foster collaboration, creativity, and results. Let's begin with where you and the participants are in the process. Provide signposts for the process. Nobody wants to attend a one-off meeting out of context from everything else happening with the team or the company. At the beginning and at the end, explain how this meeting is part of the bigger picture and process. A simple diagram is beneficial. If this is the first of 4 meetings on a given subject, point to number 1 on the diagram you've prepared and explain why we are starting the process here and where we are going next. This idea also applies to the meeting itself. During the meeting, you can show where you are in that meeting's process. Part of the guide's role is to tell people what we've done and how far we have to go. To that end, let's talk a bit about macro process guidance and micro process guidance. Macro process guidance. This is when you tell people where this meeting is in context of a more extensive process. Perhaps it is your annual business planning process, and this is the kickoff meeting. Show the participants a 4 or 5-step annual business planning process beginning in October and ending in December, and point to this kickoff meeting as the first step. This contextual information increases the value of the meeting in all the participants' minds. It communicates that this isn't a one-off meeting, but the first step in a well-thought-out process to deliver value to the company. Share the signpost information in the meeting's preview email. Share it at the beginning of the meeting, and share it again at the end. Everyone then knows why, what, and how things will be done. Don't worry about people being annoyed that you keep mentioning it. Most people in the room will still have questions, even after seeing the process multiple times. Figure 7a presents an actual diagram, a signpost, for a company's 6 steps strategic planning process. Micro-process guidance. Remind the group where they are on the day's meeting agenda. For example, start the meeting by explaining they will cover 4 topics. After each topic and before beginning the next, provide a signpost for the group. reiterating in their minds that the first topic is complete and the group is moving to address the second topic out of the 4 topics for the day. Flip charts, whiteboards, or printed agendas are helpful for signposting moments. Going to a flip chart page with the agenda on it and crossing out or adding a check mark next to the completed topic creates a visual reminder of the group's progress. Don't underestimate how important it is to validate adults for their efforts. Showing progress is an effective way to build momentum, engagement, and confidence. Figure 7b shows a real workshop poster, a signpost for a micro process, listing the workshop's steps. Use small groups to do the work. One of the easiest and most overlooked ways to increase engagement in your meetings is to play with the size of the working groups. The general rule is, the smaller the group, the more engagement you will get from each individual. This should make intuitive sense. But many meetings are dictated by the size of the room and the arrangement of the tables, which contribute to or hinder engagement from your meeting participants. Let's look at how to change the group size and arrange the room to maximize the group's ability to achieve the meeting's purpose and produce the desired outcome. The ideal working group for a creative meeting is 12 people. A working group of 12 is big enough for diversity of thought and approaches. This group size is ideal because you can break the group into 3 smaller groups of 4 and multi-track ideation and solution building. It is also big enough for the stakes to be higher, meaning people will be on their best behavior, but not so big that they are terrified to talk in front of the group. Meetings with more people start to feel like presenters and an audience. You have fewer options to spark engagement with a group of 50 or more. At most, your efforts will spark passive engagement by listening to 1 or 2 people talk at the front of the room. When the objective of a meeting is to make a decision, I like to make the group smaller. 5 to 7 people is a good group size because you retain some of the diversity of perspective, yet it's small enough to make the decision efficiently. Another general rule is that fewer people means a more efficient meeting, but with less diverse thinking. The more people in the room, the opposite occurs. You have more diversity and productive friction, but the meeting is much less efficient. Meetings with 5 or fewer people are intimate and suitable for moving quickly. The drawback is that you don't get much productive friction, because the participants were likely selected for their like-mindedness. Friction is a key ingredient for coming up with innovative ideas. Teaching new skills is about making the entire meeting process as efficient as possible for the instructor to reach and engage as many people as possible. I've taught in rooms with 60 to 150 people, but it's less than optimal. Why? Because it's effortless for participants to hide or disengage in a room full of people. The ideal number of participants for a teaching training meeting is about 20 to 25 people, because it's still manageable. You, as the leader, can engage individuals on a personal level rather than speaking to a sea of nameless faces. Sometimes a leader must host an information status sharing meeting in the form of a town hall or an all-hands-on-deck meeting. The level of engagement will go down just by the nature of the meeting, but there are ways to make it more engaging. Plan for multiple leaders or subject matter experts to answer questions to break up the monotony of a single speaker. Use a few volunteers for games and entertainment to make the meeting engaging without involving everyone in the room. Follow up with smaller meetings for understanding. When designing your meetings, check your plans against Figure 7c and at-a-glance reference for ideal meeting size for the various types of meetings. If stuck, shrink the room. If you feel like you're asking the participants a lot of questions and doing everything right and the group is still not engaging, it's time to shrink the room. When in doubt, ask them to answer a question in smaller groups. This can be groups of 4, 3, or even 2. Each group size provides a different experience for the participants. Groups of 4 are good for generating ideas. Groups of 3 are good at practicing a skill, sharing their experience, or refining a document. Groups of 2 are perfect for intimate discussions where you might have participants tell their story, share their experience, ask for coaching, or give feedback. I call them swim buddies in my programs, so folks feel they have at least one person keeping an eye out for them when they feel the most vulnerable. Use activities, even if you know the answer. I've led some meeting activities thousands of times. For example, when I ask people to develop agreements for our workshop, the first thing they say are almost always, be open, be respectful, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. You get the idea. I know what they will say, yet I ask them to say it because I want them to verbalize it themselves. It's impossible not to have an opinion when you have the floor as the leader of the meeting. The trick is to resist this urge to share what you think and let the people in the room come up with the answer independently. Doing so will make them feel more engaged because they shared something the group found valuable. Don't underestimate how important this validation can be to a participant's experience. What do you do if you have a great idea to share? Write it down. See if anyone else says it aloud. More often than not, your idea isn't original and someone else will say it. This is your moment to say, "Great idea. I was thinking the same thing." The participant will feel good about offering something of value to the group. When participants don't mention what's on your private idea list, it may be because the idea is mediocre or doesn't resonate with the team, company, or culture. If you have a rare gem and no one else seems to see it, then near the end of the exercise, mention it to a few folks and let them add it to their pile. If it's a good idea, they will take it from there. If not, then you should let it die. The same approach works for any idea that does not fit with the rest. I like to consider the idea and let it die during the adding details activity after the ideation activity. I ask people to work on the ideas or recommendations that they have the most heart for. Often, you'll see that someone who advocated for an idea earlier now decides not to pursue it and provide additional details. Don't do the work for the participants. One of the most significant barriers to engagement by participants is that they've been taught to sit quietly and not do any physical work since the days of those tiny kindergarten desks. Most people expect you, as the leader, to capture the notes and ideas for them. Playing the scribe is the worst thing to do when leading a meeting. Groups will view the scribe capturing the notes as subservient, while the more important people do the talking. Plus, by doing the work for the group, you are permitting them to disengage. A couple of problems come up when you or anyone else in the meeting is a scribe. Scribes are inefficient. Most folks think having a scribe is more efficient, but it creates a bottleneck for information. The scribe can't write as fast as the other person talks, which means the scribe paraphrases in their own words. As a result, the person sharing the idea does not feel the complete validation of being heard by the group. It's easy to disengage when someone else is the scribe. How engaging is a meeting where a few people shout ideas at someone who writes them on the whiteboard or flip chart? Not so much. Scribes permit people to slack off. When they slack off, they lose focus and disengage. Spread the work of writing to everyone in the room. When a group relies on a scribe, they only surface one idea at a time, a highly ineffective use of people's time. Why ask one person to write down ideas when you can have 12 people write them down and then use a process to sift for the best ones? A better approach is to give everyone a stack of sticky notes and markers and ask them to take their own notes. Even better is to ask a question and tell everyone to write down their answer on a sticky note before sharing. You now have as many original ideas as you have people in the room. Even if half the people in the room write down the same thing, you can point out the consensus and ask the group what they make of it. I might ask, what conclusion should we make of such similar or disparate ideas? Writing is a low-voltage way to keep people engaged. Knowing you will ask them to share what they wrote down means they must show their cards, literally, and raises the stakes, thus making the activity more engaging. Nobody wants to hold up a blank sticky note in a room of their peers. Be prepared when someone tries to skip writing down their own ideas. Don't let it slide. Otherwise, you permit them to continue avoiding the work throughout the rest of the meeting. A good strategy is to enforce the agreement that everybody writes at the beginning of the meeting and then relax it later when folks are writing second drafts, consolidating in ideas, or capturing the next steps. Validate all contributions. I'll be the first to admit that most things people say in meetings aren't always valuable. Seriously, some of it is total rubbish, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't capture it anyway. Earlier, I mentioned making it safe if you want people to engage. One way is to validate every effort by every person in the room. People are wired to collaborate. It means we constantly assess our group status. We must be reminded of our value and that the group needs us. If we don't feel seen, heard, and understood, we will advocate for it more, or more than likely, disengage. Essentially, the participants are saying, we seek safety. If you, as the meeting leader, don't give it to us, we will play it safe. The easiest way to feel safe is to say nothing. The following paragraphs offer advice to validate all contributions, make sure the participants feel heard, and ensure the best ideas rise to the top. Most ideas are bad ideas. Most shared thoughts and ideas aren't valuable because the participants likely haven't thought about it much. So what you hear is the first draft. But just because it's the first draft doesn't mean it can't be the seed of something valuable. Your mission as the meeting leader is to think with a 10-to-1 mindset. Expect to hear 10 worthless comments for every valuable one. This makes it a numbers game, which should lead you to get as many suggestions on the table as possible to increase your number of useful ideas. People like to say there are no bad ideas. I would flip it and say most ideas are bad ideas. Your job as the guide is to help the group sift through the trivial to find the essential and valuable ideas. Participants want to know if they have been heard. Most people make an unfortunate mistake when running a meeting. They don't do anything with those first draft ideas. Someone says something and it just floats out there in the air. It creates an open loop for the person, and people hate open loops. A good facilitator validates the participant with a process to capture what they said, so they can let it go and move on. This doesn't mean you should write it down. Instead, it'd be best if you encourage them to write it down and post it where it's visible for all to see. This small action closes the loop, and the idea has been heard. As a result, the person feels seen and is willing to engage more. Acknowledgement does not equal agreement. When you, as the meeting leader, entertain absurd comments by having the person write it down, you may feel like you agree with them. Acknowledgement is not the same as agreement. You and everyone else in the room can acknowledge that the person made a comment or submitted the idea by writing it down and posting it along with the rest of the suggestions, but you can completely disagree with it. Giving all comments, ideas, and suggestions the same attention makes it safe for participants to continue to engage later. Remember, if they don't feel heard, they will likely disengage. Trust the process. This is where you need to trust the process. If you capture all the suggested ideas and you conduct a vote at the end of the session for the best idea, most people won't even vote for their own idea. With a straightforward process, only the best ideas rise to the top, so you can let go of judging individual ideas as they're introduced. Refer to Figure 7D for a proven process to guide the participants to develop multiple ideas and select the top 5. Lead with effective questions. By the time the meeting begins, you've done most of the work as the meeting leader. You established the main purpose, set the agenda, invited the right people to deliver the desired outcome. At this point, you already know what you know. The reason to have a meeting is to figure out what everyone else knows so you can put this work to solve the problem. The best way to do this is to ask great questions and make people think rather than make statements or decisions yourself. Questions are a powerful way to lead. Yet many people don't bother to design powerful questions. I've found that a well-crafted and well-timed question is more effective than any particular idea I could contribute. You need a set of go-to questions for every meeting, workshop, and retreat. The aim is effectiveness, not originality. So don't worry about someone saying, "You asked the same question last time." A good question makes people think deeply and should be repeated. Deep thinking is another form of engagement. It's not flashy or social media worthy, but it does challenge people. A good question is like a puzzle needing to be solved. People like solving puzzles. Note how the following questions are open-ended but also include some scoping. For instance, when you have the words the most or the least in a question, it helps people focus and put a little thought into the response. The intent behind these questions is to dig deeper. Figure 7E presents some of my favorite questions to spark better responses. Take breaks every 90 minutes. This chapter's goal is to help you lead an engaging meeting, start to finish. Surprisingly, breaks are a key element in engaging meetings. Don't underestimate their value. This is a no-brainer, but some folks will be tempted to push through on a 120-minute meeting. Find a reason to take a break, even for 5 minutes. Keep in mind that boredom is more common than fatigue. People don't get tired by sitting too long, they get bored, and changing the pace is the best way to avoid boredom. A break is a great way to get everyone to move around and for you to set up what's coming next. It creates contrast in the experience as is more memorable and engaging than 5 hours of presentations. Breaks also open up the opportunity for impromptu connections and conversations that can drive results. How to think about skeptics and difficult participants. One of the biggest challenges when going against the grain and doing something different with your meeting is inertia. Every team and organization has a certain attitude towards meetings. For example, they are a necessary evil, so let's get through them the best we can. People have low expectations, and they don't want to be disappointed or embarrass themselves. Part of this culture is perpetuated by what I like to call non-believers. The Bible presents a story about Jesus talking to a crowd, and someone asks, "What do you do about the non-believers?" Jesus said there are believers, non-believers, and the bewildered. Your job is not to win over the non-believers. Your job is to serve the believers and win over the bewildered, the folks who need a guide to find transformation. People generally want to believe this time will be different, but it's difficult if they have 35 years of poor meeting experience weighing them down. This is their baggage, not yours to carry. All you can do is your very best to make the experience as engaging as possible and let the non-believers work on their own timelines. And don't rule anybody out. Some of my best testimonials begin, "I thought this was going to be a waste of time, but it was actually really good. Thank you." Well, that sure sounds easy, doesn't it? Just do everything I've outlined in this book and your meetings will run smoothly. Yeah, right. No meeting ever goes perfectly as planned. Nope. No matter how much you prepare or how skillful you are as a facilitator, something always goes wrong. The most senior person shows up late, someone takes the group on a tangent, or you need to cut off someone who is talking too much but don't know how. Not to worry. The next chapter addresses how to overcome some of the most common meeting problems. Chapter 8. Troubleshooting Common Meeting Problems. I am repeatedly asked one question about facilitating meetings. How can I cut off someone without hurting their feelings, or worse, getting fired? Lead enough meetings and you will need strategies for cutting off people who are monologuing, avoiding going down the rabbit hole, or getting the meeting out of the ditch and back on track. There are no magic moves for these uncomfortable situations, but having a plan and a little courage will make you more successful. How to cut off someone. One of the most uncomfortable moments when leading a meeting is needing to ask someone to stop talking. The person is either off topic or too wordy and is wasting valuable time for the group. The challenge is getting them to stop talking without making them feel angry or embarrassed and then becoming disengaged. Here are my tried and true strategies. Send signals early in the meeting. Begin by signaling early how oversharing or monopolizing the discussion is bad behavior. Addressing it early in the meeting before it begins will reduce the need to cut off someone later. Here are 2 ways to reinforce conciseness throughout the meeting. Number 1, use the no monologues agreement from Chapter 6 to signal early that we can't afford to waste time with long-winded responses. Everyone in the room will agree with this statement. I even joke about it and say, "We all hate monologues, right? So do I have permission to interrupt anyone if they're droning on?" They will laugh and agree. Number 2, the second option is to invite discussion or report outs and put a time limit on this activity. If I have a small group reporting their ideas or recommendations, I say, "Would you give us a 90-second presentation?" Both moves remind the participants that they can expect me to ask them to wrap it up or stop if they go long. Because the group has discussed this in advance, the speaker isn't surprised and is less likely to be offended. If someone talks too much or too long, the other participants will typically look at me to communicate that it's time to interrupt the speaker. Usually, raising a hand and making eye contact with the speaker is enough. If the subtle gestures are not enough, speak up by saying, "Hey Bob, let me pause you for a moment. Can you help me see where you're going with this and how it serves the conversation?" Talking straight like this takes courage, especially when the person you are interrupting is a senior leader. When you demonstrate your willingness to talk straight, it gives others permission to do the same. Sometimes you have to bless and release. This approach is the same even if it's the highest ranking person in the room, but with a bit more finesse. "Hey Regina, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we agreed to stick to our agenda. Is this something we must go deep into, or can we make a note to capture this and revisit it later?" More often than not, the leader has become passionate about a topic and has forgotten the purpose of the meeting. Give them a moment to finish their thoughts. They will likely get back on track. But what if this doesn't work? It happens to the best of us. I once led a workshop for about 50 senior leaders of a healthcare company and conducted an Ask Me Anything activity with the CEO at the end of the day. In this activity, the participants at each table came up with their top 3 questions for the CEO and placed them on a flip chart at the front of the room. We had 45 minutes for the activity. The CEO and I agreed that when there were 10 minutes to go, I would interrupt by saying we have time for one more question. This would be the CEO's cue to wrap up this Q&A so we could end the meeting on time. The CEO went long on the answer to the first question and then the second question. I gave the 10-minute signal, but there were 12 more stickers on the board. The CEO waved me off and continued speaking long past the activity and the designated conclusion of the meeting. It had been a fantastic workshop with abundant participant engagement, but it was now ending badly. People who needed to catch flights were in the awkward situation of getting up to leave. The CEO didn't care. They just kept going. I interrupted the CEO again, explained to everyone we were way past the official end of the meeting, and acknowledged that people needed to catch their flights. The CEO finally read the room and realized they had lost the participants 45 minutes ago when the meeting was supposed to adjourn. There is no perfect, magical, pain-free way to cut off people in meetings, especially high-ranking people with big egos and low self-awareness. Do what you can and do your best. If you've tried to do it respectfully multiple times, you've done your part. The participants will respect you for testing and for putting their needs first. How to prevent rabbit holes. The dreaded rabbit hole. It's when everyone in the room wishes they had the last 15 minutes of their life back. One person loses track of the meeting's purpose and the amount of time left to achieve the desired outcome and raises an issue that prevents the group from progressing. It might be a tangential topic mentioned without thought. It might also be a deliberate redirect to serve the individual's personal agenda. Either way, it rarely serves the group or the meeting's purpose. Here is how best to handle the unfortunate and inevitable rabbit hole. Let it play out and see if the situation corrects itself. You have a few options when you notice the group going down the rabbit hole. Let it play out and see if the group quickly addresses it. This option keeps you from being too heavy-handed too often. You want to save those moments for when it matters, and you only get a few per meeting. Call out the rabbit hole. The second option is to call out by asking the group, "Hey team, it feels like we may be going too deep in this topic. Is this depth serving the meeting's purpose, or should we pin it for another time?" Your question acknowledges the rabbit hole for the group and allows others to jump in and agree with you. It uses awareness to guide the meeting versus control by leaving the choice in the hands of the group. Most of the time, people agree they're getting off topic. You can add that topic to the parking lot to address later in the meeting if it's relevant and if there's time, or in a separate meeting. If the group decides the topic is important enough to address right now, I recommend asking, how much time do we want to allocate to this topic? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? 15 minutes? You can rest assured if it's a brief discussion because you built some slack into the agenda. Suppose it sounds like this issue will take more than 30 minutes to resolve, or you've already allowed one rabbit hole discussion and are now in jeopardy of failing to deliver the desired outcome. Inform the group that this diversion will interfere with the planned agenda and require shrinking or eliminating time available for the remaining topics. Bring up the meeting's purpose and desired outcome and inform the group that going down this path means you may need to rescope. Ask the group how they wish to proceed. The question allows you to challenge the group's priorities and gives the group a sense of control. Set time limits before discussions begin. Preemptively address rabbit holes by reminding the group they only have 10 minutes to discuss the current topic before moving to the next topic. A large tabletop clock with a visible countdown is helpful. The visual makes it easier for participants to check themselves without needing reminders. It's the same clock elementary school teachers use to help children self-regulate. Most individuals will see the clock ticking down and self-regulate their dialogue so the group discussion can end on time. The visible clock is also helpful when the group has gone into overtime on a topic because it reminds them that they are over time and must make another choice. Remember, everyone dislikes it when meetings go down rabbit holes. Even the people who take groups down rabbit holes dislike rabbit holes. Your job is not to control the group, but to help the attendees make informed choices so they can self-regulate. If none of this works for you, you should follow the guidance to cut someone off presented earlier in this chapter. How to help quiet folks engage. The trick to making a meeting engaging for all is to provide a variety of ways people can contribute to achieving the meeting's main purpose and delivering the desired outcome. Some will contribute by talking, others by writing things down, and others by asking questions. Create opportunities in the agenda with various ways every person can get involved and contribute. Number 1. Provide the questions in advance. Some folks like to think about a problem deeply before offering solutions. Help these folks by providing the problems to solve before the meeting begins. Number 2. Shrink the size of the discussion group. If people aren't contributing, it's rarely because they don't have ideas or questions. It's often because the group is too big. Shrinking the size of the discussion group to 3 or 4 people can make it feel safer for everyone to share what's on their mind. It also allows you to generate multiple solutions to a problem because each group will take a different angle and approach. Number 3. Ask people to write and then speak. It allows everyone to develop their own answer to a question and share when it's their turn. It lowers the stakes for most participants because they read what they wrote down instead of generating and verbalizing something from scratch. 4. Ask someone what they think. If you haven't heard someone speak for a while, it might be time to ask them for their opinion on the subject, invite them to provide an alternate point of view, or ask them a direct question. It's no big deal if they don't have an answer, but at least you made the invitation. Number 5. Rate or vote. Ask people to rate progress on a topic from 1 to 5, with 5 being excellent. Have them write down their scores and then ask the group to hold them up simultaneously so everyone in the room can see their votes. Beginning with the quiet folks, use the commonalities or differences to inquire why folks gave the scores they did. If all else fails, find a private moment to ask the quiet person for feedback on what it would take to be more engaged in the meeting. You can tell them you want to be sure their voice is heard. Let the person know you value their contribution and you will make adjustments if it helps get them more involved in the meeting. Participation isn't always visible and vocal because people can contribute in several ways to add value. Engagement can look like quiet contemplation and writing down ideas on sticky notes. What matters is giving everyone in the room the opportunity to contribute. How to get people to quiet down without raising your voice. Do what kindergarten teachers do. Say in a calm voice, "Okay, folks, let's return to one conversation." Raise your hand and begin making eye contact with people. Stand there patiently. They quickly figure it out. Some will raise their hand and get quiet. If someone doesn't stop, walk over and stand beside them. If they still won't stop speaking, politely interrupt them and ask them to do you a favor and return to the main conversation. How to ensure speakers end on time. Before giving control of the meeting to any presenter, executives included, remind them how long they are scheduled to speak. If your presenter has 30 minutes in the agenda, including Q&A, tell them you will signal when 10 minutes remain by raising your hand. Most executives recognize they are there to serve the audience and appreciate having a partner at the back of the room keeping an eye on time for them. When a few minutes remain, tell the group we have time for one more question. This communicates to the speaker and the audience that it's time to move on to the next topic in the agenda. If the presenter continues to speak beyond the time available, stand up and begin slowly and respectfully moving towards the front of the room. The person usually gets the message and wraps it up, but sometimes, like the CEO I mentioned earlier in this chapter, you must bless and release. What to do if the meeting goes into the ditch. Even with the best and most comprehensive planning, an occasional meeting will get stuck in the ditch. Perhaps the story doesn't land, the exercise is too confusing, or the participants are uncooperative. The group loses momentum and the energy level comes to a screeching halt. Hitting the ditch does happen, and planning for it in advance is essential. Signs your meeting is in a ditch. People are off topic. For some reason, the participants continue to drift away from the topic and either present new topics or revert to private conversations. People aren't following instructions. You set the stage with the activity's objective, agreements, and desired outcome, yet you notice people aren't participating fully or following the instructions. Instead, they are talking among themselves about something not aimed at meeting the objective. No one seems interested in solving the problem presented. People were aligned at the beginning of the meeting, but now complain, commiserate, and play the victim role instead of developing ideas to solve the problem productively. You get a sense something is understood but currently unsaid. It usually includes tight lips and darting eyes, but no one voices a problem. They play along, but it's easy to see something is going on, reducing the cooperation and productivity of the group. Someone decides now is the time to have a moment. Occasionally, someone has had enough and they want to get something off their chest. It has been brewing inside them and must come out during your meeting. This situation can be uncomfortable, including high emotions, tears, rage, or withdrawal. These circumstances can take the focus away from your meeting's purpose and interfere with the group's ability to deliver the desired outcome. Fortunately, the solution to all these problems is the same. Don't ignore them. Go straight at the problem by bringing it up and asking for help from the group to overcome the challenge. Follow these 4 steps when your meeting hits the ditch. Step 1. Call a break. Suppose the meeting is going into the ditch, causing everyone's anxiety and blood pressure to rise. It doesn't matter how the cow got into the ditch right now. Your only mission is to get the cow out of the ditch. You and the group can't make good decisions in this state. You need to force a break so everyone can regroup. Suggest taking time to grab a drink of water. You should do the same thing and consider options to get the meeting out of the ditch and back on track. Step 2. Present 2 options to someone with influence in the room. Quickly develop 2 feasible options to get the discussion back on track. During the break, talk privately with someone with a lot of influence in the room to calibrate your feeling that the meeting has gone into the ditch and present your 2 options. Be open to their feedback and make adjustments. You seek the counsel of the most influential person in the room because you want their support when you restart the meeting. Others will look to this person for how to react to your 2 options. Step 3. Restart the meeting with a frank acknowledgement. Tell the participants you stopped the meeting because it felt like you were going into the ditch. They will likely agree. You can speak plainly and challenge the group to talk about whatever took them into the ditch. If you do this, keep the discussion productive and moving forward. There is no value in blaming, complaining, or defending past behaviors. Step 4. Tell the group your options to move forward. It's essential to present the group with 2 options, both satisfactory for you. For example, we can opt to continue working on the previous topic to resolve the issue, or we can put that issue in the parking lot and move to the next topic, as long as we can still achieve the meeting's main purpose and deliver the desired outcome. On rare occasions, I have presented the option of packing up our things and calling it a day. I do this because I want to challenge the group to be more productive. In these extreme situations, you can suggest that if this isn't a productive use of everyone's time, the group can call it a day because everyone has better things to do. This approach challenges the group to step up their attitude and efforts. I only offer this option in the most hopeless situations. Most of the time, someone else in the room will present an amendment or additional option to consider, which is a sign you and the group are out of the ditch and moving forward again. What to do when it takes longer than you predicted. Hopefully, you followed my advice in Chapter 7 to manage the clock and you built a little flex time into your agenda, which can help ensure the meeting doesn't run long. However, you may need to cut the last topic if you don't have time to address it. The skillful way to do this is to stop the discussion during the next to last topic and point out that you won't have time to complete the agenda if you continue working on the current topic. Whatever you do, don't ignore the fact that you will run out of time if the discussion continues. Give the participants a choice of 2 options. Either wrap up the current topic in the next 5 minutes so you have time to address the last topic, or cut the last topic or activity. Allow them to make a choice. Give participants 2 viable choices, ones you're perfectly satisfied with, so they feel in control. Most of the time, they will say, "We can get this done in 5 minutes," to which you reply, "Okay, let's talk for 5 more minutes, and then we're cutting it off. Agreed?" When the 5 minutes are up, you must cut off the discussion. You must be firm in voice and action to hold people to their word and fulfill the meeting's main purpose and desired outcome. Place whatever is not done or decided in the parking lot. What to do if your boss is the problem in the meeting. I once worked for a CEO who opened a strategy workshop by telling the leadership team he had 100% faith and trust in his team and would support any strategy they recommended. He even said I was in charge of the meeting and he would be an equal participant for the rest of the day. I thought he was about to pass me the baton and was surprised when he launched into a 15-minute dissertation on the precise plan he wanted his team to implement and concluded with, "I'm not even sure why we're here today." Sometimes the problem with your meeting is your boss, the team's leader, or an executive. This can feel uncomfortable and awkward, but you must address it if you hope to get things back on track. It's not a great place to be in, but it does happen, and you must do something about it as quickly as possible. Here are 2 options to address and overcome this situation. Option 1. Suggest a short break as quickly as you can. Your reason for taking a break is to take care of something. Everyone in the room will suspect what's happening. They are on your side and want this meeting to be as productive as possible. Or they want you to cancel it so they can get on with their day. Either way, they understand that you need to address the situation. Find the leader and ask them to chat with you for a moment. When you get them to a private spot out of earshot, ask them if you're missing the mark on the meeting. Is it not going in the right direction? Is there something else we should be working on instead? If they ask why, be straight with them by telling them they are creating the wrong environment or getting you off your agreed agenda. At this point, they will adjust their behavior or you will change the agenda, or you will end the meeting early to make the best use of the group's time. Don't continue the meeting if you don't think your boss or client has your back. It will undermine your credibility with everyone else in the room, and participants could waste their time creating a desired outcome that the leader will ignore. This option allows everyone involved to save face. It is more discreet than the next option and my preferred approach. I offer the following option because you may be in a meeting where you don't feel you can call a break after the first 15 minutes. Option 2, say something right away in front of everyone. This option is higher risk because it requires challenging the leader out in the open. Most team cultures do not favor this approach. However, I have had to say something occasionally because the meeting would have wasted everyone's day if I didn't. The way to approach this is to ask a question and before they can answer, explain why you're asking it. It goes something like this. Hey, Rick, may I ask you what might have changed since you and I set today's meeting purpose, agenda, and desired outcome? I ask because what you're saying right now makes me feel like we're no longer aligned with what we planned 2 weeks ago, and I want to know if we need to pause and make some adjustments. The aim here is to let the leader know that you realize they are derailing the meeting and to do it as respectfully as possible. If this happens, keep an open mind. Sometimes a last-minute change to the meeting's purpose is needed due to some new information or circumstances. Perhaps the competitive environment changed drastically overnight. Adjusting the agenda on the spot is a wise, if not challenging, move to achieve a desired outcome that best serves the team or the company. Most of the time, however, the leader is frustrated by something and is venting in front of the group because they didn't allow time in their schedule to be at the meeting they planned. In this case, a brief and respectful exchange can get your meeting back on track. How did I address the leader who rolled out his strategy and then questioned why we were here in his meeting in the first place? I thanked him for his thoughts and asked if we should cancel the rest of the meeting and let everyone get back to work. He responded with surprise and asked, "Why would I suggest that?" I said, "Well, you hired me to lead the team through developing a strategy, and it seems you have it all figured out already." He quickly recounted his previous statement, apologized to the group, and reassured everyone he wanted their ideas and support for whatever strategy they developed. He thanked me at the next break for helping him be a better leader. What to do if there's a big distraction or disruption. Occasionally, distracting environmental issues will interfere with your meeting. The room temperature is way off. The AV isn't working. The catering team enters to set up the meal and drops a stack of plates, or a construction crew decides to tear up the tile on the floor above you. All these examples have happened to me, and many more, making it difficult for participants to concentrate. So what should you do in these situations? Don't ignore the distraction or pretend it isn't happening. If someone gets sick or gets a call and receives terrible news about their family, don't pretend it isn't happening. If the AV isn't working, abandon it. You were only using slides as backup singers anyway. If the Zoom link is broken, fix it. Tell the group you will take a quick break to ensure everything is okay, and then you will get back on track. 2 more troubleshooting tips. What if lunch is delivered early and the people in the room can see it or smell it? You need to take a lunch break right away, even if it's 30 minutes early. Hungry people do not perform at their best. Just acknowledge and adjust. It should never happen, but what if the host or more senior person is late to the meeting? Should you wait for them or proceed and try to catch them up when they arrive? Start the meeting on time and proceed with the agenda. If you followed the instructions in this guide, you are clear on the meeting's purpose and desired outcome. When the person does arrive, encourage the group to keep working while you pull the host or senior leader aside and catch them up on the process or discussion. This ensures the group has enough time to achieve the meeting's main purpose and deliver the desired outcome. Unknowable problems will always lurk in your meeting agenda. Participants will throw you curveballs. Your laptop, microphone, or other technology will go on the fritz. The desired outcome may be further out of reach than you realized. Problems happen, but you now have a plan for most common problems you may encounter in the meetings you lead. However, we still need to address one challenge that deserves an in-depth discussion. How do you lead engaging and productive virtual and hybrid meetings? Chapter 9 offers tried and true tips to navigate this challenging meeting environment. Chapter 9. Tips to lead engaging virtual and hybrid meetings. If convincing people to engage in an in-person meeting is as difficult as running while juggling flaming bowling pins, then making a virtual and hybrid meeting engaging and productive is like doing all of that while wearing ice skates. The virtual meeting is a blessing, but it is also one of the most challenging environments to facilitate. The good news is that all the lessons we discussed in earlier chapters still apply. The main difference is that virtual and hybrid meetings need extra love and attention to ensure they're just as engaging and productive as in-person ones. I'll give you some tips and tricks to improve your virtual and hybrid meetings significantly. All the principles in the previous chapters apply to virtual and hybrid meetings, yet the standards are higher. Why? Because people are sitting alone in front of a monitor, are easily distracted, and quickly bored. To make things worse, you have fewer ways to engage folks who are participating remotely. Live meetings are ideal thanks to the shared energy created when working on a project together. It's great when you can use this shared energy to drive engagement. Yet virtual and hybrid meetings have some advantages that live meetings do not. The trick is to design specifically for virtual or hybrid experience. Virtual and hybrid meetings adhere to a different set of rules. In other words, don't design a live meeting, hold it online, and expect it to be engaging or productive. Here are some ideas to help you. Use the available tools. Virtual meetings have some advantages over live meetings because you don't have to worry about the physical space, and you can take advantage of the numerous digital tools available. But before we begin, and I shouldn't have to say this, I need to point out that even today, people are leading virtual meetings with their camera turned off. Or if it is turned on, it's their low-quality laptop camera and earbuds in their bedroom. As a meeting leader, I offer you the same reminder I offer my workshop participants. You may be comfortable in your bedroom, but we are not. If you want your virtual meetings to be engaging, it starts with your location, lighting, camera, and microphone. Remove distractions from the background. You need a simple, clean background that is not distracting. I prefer a natural setting free of clutter, but a digital background is acceptable if it isn't pixelated and doesn't give you the ghost look as you come in and out of focus. If you choose to use a digital background, hold a test meeting for a trusted colleague or record a brief test meeting to see for yourself if it's distracting or enjoyable to watch from the participant's point of view. Be seen in your best light. Consistent lighting separates you from the background. You should be lit up so people can see the expression on your face. A simple and inexpensive light can go a long way in providing consistent light quality regardless of the weather outside your office window. Your screen light shining on your face in a dark room is distracting. With a small investment, you can change the experience for everyone. Ensure you're easy on the eyes. You need the highest resolution camera you can afford. If you are an in-house trainer, don't wait for your company to buy one for you. Invest in yourself to have the highest quality visual presentation possible. Anything less is like static, reducing the transmission of information and distracting from the experience for your participants. Sound quality is everything. Do not rely on your computer, headphones, or camera microphone. The quality standard for these products is just good enough. Invest in a high-quality unidirectional microphone to capture the quality of your voice and be pleasant for the participants to hear during the meeting. The aim of all these investments is to remove distractions and increase the focus on you. The image and sound of you matter when leading a meeting. Use digital whiteboards. I never lead a meeting without sticky notes and markers. I cannot overstate the value of these simple tools in a live meeting. They allow every participant to engage in the meeting. With a bit of instruction, digital whiteboards can provide the same opportunity. Most modern digital whiteboards enable all participants to type their sticky notes in the same virtual space and move them around just like in a live meeting. The key advantage is the opportunity to make color and shape changes to organize ideas quickly. They also include a copy and paste command, which saves a significant amount of time. Finally, digital whiteboards usually have voting features, allowing you to identify the best ideas much faster than you can in real life, with the additional advantage of an anonymous voting process. Leverage live polling tools. I mentioned before that I don't send surveys for feedback on the workshops I lead, but I do use digital polling tools to engage virtual and hybrid participants. Polling groups in the spur of the moment can be engaging, as polls allow you to see what people are thinking about a topic, and, if done well, can inform how to proceed with the project. I like to use pre-planned polling questions to stimulate discussion. I will post the question and the audience will answer it in real time and anonymously. I then reveal the results and engage the participants to help me interpret them. Call people by name. The mute button is one of the most challenging parts of leading a virtual and hybrid meeting. Most folks put themselves on mute because they don't want to disrupt the meeting with barking dogs, kids, or other distracting sounds. This practice leads to more friction in engaging fully in a meeting, meaning you must be more intentional when asking questions. The best way to do this is to call people by name. I will regularly select individuals and ask them specific questions. The questions might be like, "Lisa, what do you think?" Chanel, I haven't heard your voice in a bit. I'm sure you have some thoughts. Yolanda, what resonates with you most so far? Richard, is anything not making sense to you right now? Jamie, do you see any alternative options? I call out the person's name and then ask a question inviting them to engage. The overused, does anyone have any questions, is far less effective than, Marcus, do you have a question you're thinking about? I like to repeat the questions with a couple more people to get diverse perspectives. Be vigilant with the time and how long it's been since you last opened the floor for dialogue. Call on a few folks in this round and then a few others next time. I try to call on everyone at least once during a meeting. Sometimes, once one person begins talking, others begin volunteering their answers. No need to call on every person every time. You might think this approach makes participants uncomfortable and takes them back to high school for fear of being called on by the teacher. At the beginning of the meeting, during the agreement setting portion of the agenda, I prime the group and let them know I will call on them. I mention how challenging a virtual meeting can be for an engaging conversation. The group will nod in agreement. I then tell them that calling on people by name works well to overcome the digital friction and ask if they feel comfortable if I just call on people throughout the day. Finally, I mention that saying no thanks or pass is okay when calling their names. Every group I've worked with has agreed to the terms, and it's rare for a participant not to have something to offer when asked. Avoid hybrid meetings if you can. Typically, companies pay me to facilitate half-day and full-day workshops where the group creates a culture strategy or annual business plan for their company's growth. These meetings require a significant amount of participation. I prefer to lead live meetings, but sometimes someone can't travel to the meeting location or it's a globally dispersed team. In the early days of virtual meetings, companies spent a lot of money outfitting conference room with expensive big screens and voice-activated motion cameras. Unfortunately, only a handful of people would be in the conference room and the rest of the participants would be on individual computers in various locations. It's difficult to facilitate this type of hybrid meeting when I am in the room, and even more so when I'm one of the people on the screens. It's a facilitation nightmare because the people in the conference room can engage with each other. They can have private conversations or actually hold the meeting while the rest of us observe, only able to pick up bits and pieces of what's being discussed. Worse, the conference room participants can push the mute button and no one else can hear anything. That's why I encourage the one face per screen rule. If we're holding a virtual meeting where participation needs to be high and what doesn't meet this standard, then everyone should have their own computer and individual screen. No conference rooms or sharing of a screen. This approach gives everyone in the meeting an equal footing and avoids the dreaded hybrid meeting. What to do if a hybrid meeting is your only choice? So you have no choice but lead a hybrid meeting with 12 people live and 3 people attending virtually. I try to avoid hybrid meetings at all cost. I recommend changing the meeting date so everyone can attend or accepting that the people attending virtually will have a diminished role and experience. Sometimes a hybrid meeting is the only option, and I do what I can, but it's challenging. In a world where you can choose between getting better results or having lower expectations, I lower my expectations when it comes to hybrid meetings. My priority is ensuring the participants in the live meeting have the most engaging, productive experience I can provide. If a hybrid meeting is your only option, then I recommend the following tactics to ensure the highest level of engagement possible. Number 1, send documents in advance so everyone can look at them before the meeting. This is better than screen sharing during the meeting, which often makes the text or slides too big and the video too small. Number 2, insist that everyone attending virtually turns on their camera so the group can see their faces, reactions, and signals when they want to speak up. Number 3, stop to check in with virtual attendees more often than it feels like you should. It's challenging for participants to join a live conversation when attending digitally. As the meeting leader, you must provide lots of opportunities by pausing the live dialogue and inviting contributions from virtual attendees. Engage people by calling them by name and asking them specific questions. Number 4, use the digital tools breakout rooms for small group discussion or problem-solving activities. Small group discussions drive more engagement, so sending all the virtual attendees to a breakout room to discuss and problem-solve together is a great way to activate this engagement. When time is up, ask the live attendees to present to the digital attendees and vice versa. Number 5, capture notes on a digital whiteboard so everyone sees the options considered and the choices made and feels validated. Number 6, assign one person in the room to navigate the digital environment. Leading the live meeting and managing the AV and digital tools is difficult. Assign someone to help you manage the digital elements. Be sure to run through the agenda together before the meeting so you aren't tripping over each other during the meeting. Number 7. Use modified activities and digital room hosts for meetings with more than 75 attendees. To do this well, you plan for 2 experiences, the live experience and the digital experience. You assign a host to the digital room, and they play the role of facilitator for the digital attendees. Hybrid meetings are the most challenging to lead, but they can be done with the right expectations, prior planning, and the flexibility to make accommodations. The tools and methods to lead engaging and productive virtual and hybrid meetings may differ, but the principles are the same. You must engage people if you want engagement. It requires additional investment in design, planning, and preparing for the meeting. It also requires a bit of investment in the tools and resources and more courage to challenge participants to fully engage. It's now time to discuss the one thing your participants give more weight to than anything else when judging if your meeting was engaging and productive. Did the meeting end on a high note? Chapter 10. End the meeting on a high note. We all know first impressions are important, but did you know last impressions are just as crucial? Scientists have proven that how an experience ends sticks with us more than the overall experience. Dr. Daniel Kahneman and Dr. Barbara Fredrickson conducted research leading to something called the peak end rule. The peak end rule is a cognitive bias impacting how people remember past events. Intense positive or negative moments, the peak, and the final moments of an experience, the end, are heavily weighted in our mental calculus. This rule applies to meetings and the participants' level of engagement. If your meeting peters out at the end to a slow, painful grind, then no one but you will remember the tremendous first half of the meeting. Think about it like this. You go for a beautiful run in the most scenic terrain with your favorite person. Before you round the corner for home, you step in a deep mud hole and ruin your new running shoes. What part of the experience will you share later at dinner? Of course, the mud hole. Everything you experience leading up to the mud hole moment is irrelevant. The mud hole ruined your sneakers, which you will remember more than the run. Poor endings to meetings are the mud holes of your participants' experience. The peak end rule can work in our favor or against us. The end of the meeting is so vital that it gets its own chapter. In fact, there are 3 essential parts to ending a meeting: the wrap-up, close, and after-meeting actions, which I call affirming actions. Every meeting comes to an end, and the skillful facilitator makes moves to end on a positive note, so people remember an engaging experience. How to wrap up the meeting. Many meetings just end because time ran out rather than reaching a meaningful conclusion. If you want to ensure your meeting concludes effectively and productively, you must lead the participants down the path rather than leaving it to chance or the clock. Being intentional about how you turn the corner and head for the close makes the meeting more productive and inspires confidence and trust in your participants. Define the next steps in the process. Regardless of the meeting duration, you should save time to discuss the next steps. If it's a day-long meeting, invest 30 to 45 minutes to capture the immediate next steps and owners. I give it 60 minutes in the agenda. You should be able to create a detailed plan for the participants to know what they need to do and by when. If it's a 1-hour meeting, spend at least 5 minutes creating a quick list of the action items that were brought to light and identifying their owners. The last thing you want is to assume everyone knows what they are doing next. Remember, if 8 people attended a meeting, it's as if 8 different meetings just occurred. The next step or action items must be in writing and visible for everyone to see. Keeping the list in your meeting journal and reading it to the group does not drive the same level of personal accountability as seeing it written on a flip chart at the front of the room or captured digitally using your favorite application and shown on the screen. Use the social pressure of everyone seeing the actions accepted by the owner in front of the group. Figure 10A presents an easy yet highly effective process to capture the next steps. Be sure to capture the future action steps of the group throughout the meeting, so you won't need to generate a list from scratch at the end of the meeting when people's attention shift to preparing for their next meeting or getting ready to go home. Having lists of parking lot topics and next steps visible in the room and referenced throughout the day makes things easier at the end of the day-long or half-day workshop. The 3 questions below include the specificity required to raise the stakes from nice-to-do tasks to must-do action items. Try to eliminate any wiggle room for folks to neglect their duties later and then blame the meeting or others for their lack of productivity. Here are 3 questions to ask when assigning the next steps. Number 1, what is the action or task to be completed? Number 2, what measurement defines the action as being done? Identifying a key result or outcome is preferable, but a completion date will work. Number 3, who is responsible for the work? This is not the same as who is going to do the work. This person can delegate, but should arrive at the next meeting having completed their responsibility. Many teams want to assign multiple people to an action item. This is a mistake because it leaves too much wiggle room. Only allow one person to be responsible and tell them they can get help from anyone they want. When you complete the list of next steps, try to notice if anyone seems uncomfortable with their assigned action items. It's essential to address the concerns in the moment. Create a speak now or get it done environment by asking, are we comfortable completing all the next steps by the decided times? Follow with, this is the last chance to ask for what you need, so if anyone feels overwhelmed or concerned that they don't have the capacity, resources, or time to complete the task, please say it now so we can make adjustments. If you have done a good job of creating a safe environment, people will speak up if they are concerned about their tasks. If execution is a problem, check in with people individually or as a group to help them feel accountable. Think of the next steps list as your responsibility. If you don't see people living up to their commitment, reach out to them to understand why and pressure them to get it done. You must lead by example by completing all of your action items, so you can approach people from a place of completion rather than as someone who also has not completed their tasks. Schedule the next meeting. If the group requires another meeting to achieve the meeting's main purpose and deliver desired outcome, schedule it while people are still in the meeting. Agreeing to schedule it later creates more work and diminishes the experience for everyone involved. Alternatively, if this meeting is part of a process that includes several meetings, schedule all the meetings and send the calendar invites before the first meeting. Doing so provides an opportunity at the opening and closing of each meeting to remind the participants of the precise dates for upcoming events already on their calendars. It's a much stronger position for discussion and effectiveness than, let's agree to schedule a meeting with each other later. When you do the latter, you need to schedule a meeting to decide when to meet, which wastes everyone's time. Review the meeting's main purpose and desired outcome. Even though they just participated in the most engaging meeting of the week, don't expect the meeting participants to remember what problem they were trying to solve or the desired outcome they were trying to produce. Review why the meeting was held, the problem to solve, and what the group produced from the time invested together. Doing this seeds in everyone's mind that the meeting was productive, thanks to your facilitation skills. Prepare a few talking points and spend no more than 2 to 3 minutes reviewing the main purpose and desired outcome. How to close the meeting. The close includes the final official words and actions of the meeting. It's everything that happens right before the meeting adjourns. It's your last chance to engage the participants before they re-enter their busy lives. It's either the moment when you say something lame like, "That's all I have for you," or when you go big and drop the mic after you inspire the group with appreciation and a great story. But before you do that, I want to remind you to end earlier than promised. What 10 minutes is worth. It's just 10 minutes. It comes and goes quickly, with most of us not noticing its passing. However, adjourn a meeting 10 minutes late and you disrupt someone's entire day. It's the difference between making it to the next meeting on time or the embarrassment of walking in late. It's the difference between picking up kids after school or making them wait by the curb in foul weather. It's not a significant amount of time, but it can make a big difference in how you end a meeting and the amount of trust you build or erode for the next meeting. I cannot overstate the difference between ending 10 minutes early and 10 minutes late. You must always, always, always finish early. Even if it's only 5 minutes early, it will make a difference for the participants. It impacts their entire experience and takes advantage of the peak end rule. Occasionally, you might be fooled into thinking whatever you're working on is more important than what these folks have planned next. But trust me, it isn't to them. Break this rule and you will lose their trust. It's essential to end on time, or early if you're a pro, because this demonstrates your command of the topic, the agenda, and yourself. It shows the participants they can trust you by ending with a thoughtfully prepared and on-time ending. Build a reputation for this self-control and group control, and your stock will rise with your company or your clients. How could it not? Meetings are where most people see you in action. And landing your parachute smoothly on the 50-yard line is more impressive than missing the mark and then stumbling and tangling yourself in your parachute. The first earns respect, the second earns concern. Do you want the participants to remember that you forced them to be late to pick up their kids, or do you want them to remember feeling productive and confident because they got it all done and on time? Telling people to their faces the meeting ends at 4:30 p.m. and knowing all along that you secretly plan to adjourn the meeting at 4:20 p.m. or earlier is a good strategy. In all my years, no one has ever complained. It may feel unethical, but remember, it serves the participants. They can't help themselves from filling every 30-minute block of their day with something, and you are doing them a favor by telling them an end time and not mentioning the little buffer you just gave them. Don't end with Q&A, but if you must. Nothing is worse than experiencing the air deflate from the room when you see someone end a meeting or presentation by asking, "Do you have any questions?" The room is filled with an awkward silence and diverted eye contact until the presenter says, "Well, since there are no questions, thanks for coming. Have a great day." This common approach leaves the outcome of this crucial part of the meeting to chance. What's worse than awkward silence is when the contrarian in the room opens up a new topic needing more than 5 minutes to address. If you feel a Q&A session at the end of the meeting is necessary, then follow the approach that Michael and Amy Port of Heroic Public Speaking teach. Set a time limit of 5 to 10 minutes. You can always extend this if it's valuable and the agenda allows the time. Answer the questions as concisely as you can and move on. Don't get into a discussion. To wrap up the Q&A, say you will answer one more question if someone has something pressing. That word is important. It should be pressing. Don't invite left-field questions by being vague. When the time runs out on the Q&A, begin the close. This can include a closing story, the next steps, and gratitude from the host. You own the close. It's your meeting. Please don't give it to someone else. You've been a good guide so far. Don't bail out on the participants at the moment they will remember most. Don't end with housekeeping notes. The only thing worse than ending a meeting with an extended silent response to "Does anyone have any questions?" is to end with "just a few housekeeping items before you go." Housekeeping often turns into a list of trivial comments and reminders, often told in the voice and energy of a middle school teacher correcting your grammar in front of your peers. If there is one universal truth for professional adults, we don't appreciate being reminded to put on our coats, fill out our time cards, or pay for parking after the meeting. If you must provide housekeeping items, type them up and hand out copies at lunch. The end of the meeting is too valuable to squander on something that, at best, people only half listen to or, at worst, makes them feel like children. Nothing is worse than closing with a powerful and inspiring story and following with trivial housekeeping notes. Let the story be the final word and do what professionals do. Stop talking. End with gratitude. What's missing from most meetings these days is gratitude. Not the feeling, but the expression of appreciation at the end of the meeting for the people and their participation. Time is people's most precious resource. Thank them for spending some of their time in the meeting. It's a simple move, but it's often forgotten because people don't have a plan for how to end the meeting. You can never go wrong with appreciation and recognition for good attitudes and effort. If you want to take it to the pro level and make this gesture more meaningful, be more specific with your gratitude. Saying, "Thank you for your time today" is good, but acknowledging specific actions by people throughout the meeting leaves a better impression. Keep notes throughout the meeting, so you have genuine and specific thoughts to share when concluding the meeting. Say the general thank you statement to the group, plus recall a few particular attitudes or actions you noticed by a few folks and mention how these behaviors made the meeting and the team successful. Here are a few words or actions to look for throughout the meeting to recall at the end of the meeting. Be sure to thank the person who arranged the room or got the food. This is a thankless job, so make sure this person gets a round of applause. Thank people for specific actions, ideas, or words they said. If someone challenged the group's thinking, thank the person for making us better. When thanking people, be sure to use their names. People love to hear their names. By doing so, you acknowledge their efforts and validate that today's meeting was a productive use of their time, even if it doesn't go exactly as you planned. End by telling a story. People are storytelling and story-consuming machines. We love to hear a relevant and well-told story, but most of us are unwilling to take the risk in front of our work peers. People are always looking for ways to motivate their teams, yet fail to take advantage of the one thing human beings have been doing since we bang rocks together to make fire. This story quality doesn't have to earn you an invite to give a TED Talk or a spot on the Moth Radio Hour. It just needs to be from the heart and relatable. You can tell a story about how far this team has come, or a story about the future you and the team just created. It can be funny, but it doesn't have to be. It just has to be meaningful and relevant. Your intention is to leave the group feeling more connected and more motivated to keep doing great work. You've been telling stories your whole life and are better at it than you might think. Muster the courage to tell a story, and it will inspire others to do the same. What to do after the meeting adjourns. As you might expect, the meeting doesn't end when everyone leaves the room. Since you are playing the facilitator role, you have a few more do's and don'ts to ensure the meeting was effective and productive. I call these actions affirming actions, because they honor the work done in the meeting and address the greatest complaint of most meeting goers. Nothing happens after the meeting. Too many meetings end with good intentions and zero action. You want to affirm in the minds of your participants that this meeting is different by taking action and making it visible to all involved. Discourage meeting after the meeting. Often someone will come up to you after the meeting and share what they think. This is a golden opportunity to challenge them for not bringing up their idea or concern during the meeting. It takes courage. It also teaches them to be better next time. They would have brought up their idea or concern if it was essential, because you designed a meeting inspiring safety to share their hearts and ideas. If that's not the case, this is the perfect time to ask what you could have done differently to engage them more fully in the meeting. Don't send a survey to ask for feedback. Surveys rarely provide useful feedback because most people are inundated with survey requests. Most people ignore surveys, and those who complete them are generally overly positive or negative about tiny personal preferences. You can gain insight into your meeting's engagement level and effectiveness in 4 different ways, and they offer much better feedback than a survey could convey. Number 1, if people say it was valuable to them after the meeting. When people stop you while cleaning up to thank you and tell you how helpful it was a good meeting. Number 2, if people send an email thanking you after the meeting. This is a big lift for the other person, which means they are thinking about the experience well after the event. Number 3, if people arrive enthusiastically at the next meeting. People vote with their feet. They will show up if they're confident the next meeting will be valuable. If not, they won't return. Number 4, if people ask you for the activity, agenda, and tools you used in the meeting. This means they want to copy your moves as the meeting leader because they worked on them. Deliver everything you promised. Don't let this be another meeting where we talk a good game and don't follow up with action. If you agree to do something after the meeting, such as sending the follow-up email by the end of the day, then do it. The meeting is not over when people walk out of the room. It's over when things are officially documented for all to see and the group delivers the tangible desired outcome. Send the follow-up notes of the decisions made and the next action steps the participants committed to doing in the meeting. This demonstrates a commitment and leadership to follow through on your responsibility, which puts social pressure on everyone else to do the same. If you slide, the group slides, which means your meeting will end up like most meetings: too much talk, not enough action. Send files and follow-up documents as soon as possible after the meeting adjourns. An effective approach is to ask the participants to treat what they create in the room, for example, the next steps list, strategic plan, or marketing plan, as a first draft, and assure them that they will receive a cleaned-up second draft after the meeting. This allows the participants to adopt a done's better than perfect attitude throughout the meeting, knowing they will receive a higher quality draft afterward. Taking responsibility for turning the rough draft produced in the meeting into a digital second draft allows you to ensure the group can promptly deliver the desired outcome. Follow these steps to develop and finalize the next steps document, strategic plan, or another document, the tangible desired outcome, resulting from your meeting. Number 1, capture all the words you jotted down on a flip chart or other tools during the meeting into a document. As a reminder, the notes captured during the meeting represents the first draft. Number 2, after the meeting, organize the information based on the subject into 1 to 3 page document. This is the second draft. Simplify all the language to capture the spirit in as few words as possible. Add context to anything essential that your meeting notes may not have captured. Number 3, run the document through an AI grammar and spell checker. Make the document visually appealing with proper spacing, titles, and subtitles. Send this second draft document to the group for review and feedback. Number 4, after receiving feedback, make any adjustments to the document and resend it with final in the title. This approach demonstrates to participants that the work continues after the meeting and creates accountability for them to complete their agreed action items. Don't underestimate how powerful this type of social pressure can be to get things done. The end of the meeting is so important that you must plan it before the meeting or workshop begins, and then pick up details and inspiration throughout the meeting to reflect back to the participants in the closing moments. The end of the meeting, including the affirming actions, locks in the value for the participants and the organization. This is where the execution of their plan or implementation of the learning begins. You are now a worthy guide, one who can take a common meeting, which most agree can waste time and resources, and turn it into an engaging and productive experience that delivers hope and results. It's rare and meaningful work. Don't be surprised if they ask you to do it again. Conclusion. Only 4% of people who start a book reach the conclusion. Congratulations on being a rare and beautiful unicorn who starts and finishes what they started. Feel free to give yourself a high five and walk a little more upright today. You've earned it. Thanks for sharing some of your valuable time studying how to save the world from another boring and unproductive meeting. Your team, company, clients, and career thank you for investing in yourself and learning how to maximize everyone's performance at work. Remember the big idea of this book. You must engage people if you want engagement. It's the simple law of reciprocity. If you make a concerted effort on your meeting participants' behalf, they will respond in kind. The meetings you lead can become a space to explore options, create innovative solutions, and make decisions. Follow the advice in this guide, and you will transform boring, ineffective meetings into engaging, productive meetings that enhance participation, generate better ideas, and drive results. I've tried to share the most practical advice I've learned over the last 20 years of studying and leading meetings. I learned most of this by making mistakes and spending more time in the ditch than I'd like to admit. I'm grateful for your time, trust, and willingness to take my advice. I'm confident it will make you more effective at what you do and more respected by your peers. In my effort to give you the most practical advice possible, I failed to mention one important idea that supersedes the rest. Seriously, I woke up one day in the third round of editing this book and thought, oh no, I forgot to share the most important idea for leading, engaging, and productive meetings. A better author would have found a place in the front of the book to insert this helpful wisdom, but I like leaving it here at the end as a secret bonus, just for you. Here is my final and probably most valuable advice for your journey to lead, engaging, and productive meetings. Improvise. All the steps, tips, strategies, and tactics to lead meetings people want to attend rest on a foundation of improvisation. Great facilitators trust their instincts, read the room, and take what the participants give them to create a productive and remarkable experience. People always ask me for advice on certain techniques to do this or that in their meetings. They want to know what I would have done in a certain situation. Questions like these are difficult to answer because I wasn't in the room and couldn't feel the participants' energy at the moment. This may sound woo-woo, touchy-feely stuff, but the truth is you will never reach mastery without using all 5 of your senses. Your body is a sensory instrument, not, as one author put it, a stick to carry around your big brain. Your body is a highly sensitive tool that communicates with feelings. Most people try to ignore their feelings because they'd rather think of themselves as logic machines. To become a great facilitator, you must begin noticing what your body is trying to tell you. When you begin listening to your body, you can adapt to the specific circumstances and improvise a solution. This book's principles and practical advice will give you a foundation for what works and what doesn't work. But don't stop there. Practice the moves provided, not so you do them exactly as I would, but rather to learn what works best for you. I've been facilitating meetings, workshops, strategic retreats, and leadership development events for a long time. Most of the professionals in my field identify a bit or an approach that works, and they never change it. They settle into a routine and stop improvising and experimenting. Don't become one of those people. My rule is to try something new in every meeting I lead. I start by taking all the actions recommended in this book. I design the meeting agenda, script the activities, and rehearse the story so I can deliver a great experience. Then, when I'm in the room, I try to be fully present in what's happening and what I'm experiencing. Often, an idea pops into my head that makes me a bit nervous, because I don't know how it will go or if I can pull it off. I take the feeling as a sign to proceed and go for it. I go off script. I do something unexpected, even for me, and I improvise. Does it work? Not always. Sometimes I crash and burn, or the participants don't respond how I expected. But sometimes it's remarkable. It becomes the peak moment of the meeting and what participants talk about afterward. Sometimes it's so good I rush to write it all down so I can add it to my list of tools, activities, and bits for next time. Meetings, workshops, and retreats don't have to be boring and unproductive. They can be engaging experiences that leave a mark on the people, teams, and companies you work with daily. All it takes is for you to be willing to throw out the old script on meetings, engage your participants, and improvise an extraordinary experience. Never underestimate your power to make a difference for others.